Just like in the movies.
Welcome to Super Wonder Legacy. I am Jared. I am here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And today we have a very special pairing that we are going to discuss today. So I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. Early days of Comics League, Lad and I were talking on the phone one day, and Lad obviously is the co-founder of Comics League, and he and I were talking about like Justice League or something like that. And it's kind of funny. So then he tells me, Marvel has their own version of the Justice League, right? And I'm like, wait, what? So I flip through the Marvel encyclopedia that I have, and I'm like, oh my God. And it's eerily similar.
Very.
What do you think,
very
Britt?
similar.
As a newly exposed, as someone that just discovered the Squadron because of moi.
Well, just as we did like our Elseworlds, and I think it was just the Elseworlds episode that we did, and basically like the copycats. But that was my exposure to the Squadron Supreme. But I really didn't like read the their first book. And so once reading the miniseries, it was kind of like, oh wow, like this is much better, I think, in a dramatic sense, than DC in their earlier times, because Marvel really likes to hammer in the drama a little bit more than DC. DC likes to play it safe. And yeah, that is the one thing that Marvel has ahead of DC.
Yeah. So Superman and Wonder Woman and Hyperion. Okay, so here's the funny part. So I saw this top image, and when I looked at their design for Power Princess, because that's the new design for Power Princess, I was like, oh wow, you're not even trying to hide it anymore, are you?
No, especially the variant cover.
Yeah, it's literally Wonder Woman.
Diana in black and gold. That's basically what it is. And it was honestly very confusing because, with it being textless, you definitely can just put that as, oh, this is a Halloween or something variant cover for Wonder Woman, like the DC versus vampires or something like that. That's basically what everyone was joking about with that. But yeah, Marvel, it feels like they want to poke the bear in a sense, because with New 52, that really changed the game. Not only did it help the industry, but it showed that, oh, Marvel needs to step up their game as well. And it was successful, as we have repeated plenty of
Many times. By the way, Britt, so this is how much of a Squadron Supreme reader I am.
Oh, wow. See, I need to catch up with you.
I'll give you again another reading list, and plus we put that in the book. Yes, what Britt and I always do is we give you guys reading lists. So if you want to see these couples, you may pick up those comics or see them on Marvel Unlimited, DC Unlimited. But yeah, okay, Squadron is freaking awesome. Like, they're different enough from DC, so it doesn't feel like I'm just reading DC, but it's similar enough that I feel like I'm reading DC. It's in that weird area where it's different but the same. And honestly, better than Tom King's Wonder Woman, but that's saying a lot. So yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, it's like Marvel, and with any of the copycats of Superman and Wonder Woman, as whether it's their character individually or their dynamic, is like these other companies or writers or artists, they see the potential and they want to explore it, too. What is that? Astro City have Samaritan and Winged Victory. You have these certain couples that stay together, and you can see how, okay, if this works for the copycats. Obviously, it can work for the real deal. The only thing that, and we'll get to this, is the baggage. Just because Superman and Wonder Woman are under the same DC umbrella, they're still separate franchises. They do have their own legacy, history, and everything like that. But it takes someone that's really, really dedicated and creative enough to merge it all together and not be lazy. And that's the problem with DC, is that they're so lazy and want to play it safe.
Exactly. By the way, hi, Cameron. And Barry Allen says, funnily enough, I was talking with a friend about 2 weeks ago. He agrees Diana is better for Clark than Lois. He doesn't think Marvel would do Superman and Wonder Woman, but my argument against is this. Yeah, exactly. If they do Hyperion and Power Princess, I feel like they'd give Clark and Diana what they deserve. Heck, they do a lot of hero couples. Yeah, exactly. And Mark Grunwald's Squadron Supreme was the OG Kingdom Come and Watchmen. We'll talk about that. But what's kind of interesting, Brett, is that in every iteration, Hyperion is with Zarda. Every single iteration.
Right, I noticed that. And that's the thing, is that DC, they see the potential, else we wouldn't have the, on and off thing, the teases and hints and stuff. However, they can't just go forward with it.
Well,
But
yeah, they
Marvel,
can. It's just it requires DC to not be lazy.
exactly. With Marvel, again, they see a concept and they see the potential. It's obviously eternally, like I said, New 52, it was successful and they saw that. So, I mean, the fact that the newest design for Zarda was basically New 52 Wonder Woman.
I'm going to
Yes.
talk about this series, by the way, because it literally is. They turn the Marvel universe into the DC universe. It literally is that.
Yeah. So for them to do that and do it so boldly, like in your face, and be successful with it as well. It really shows that, okay, DC, obviously you have something, a gem on in your hands, but you are fumbling it. And yeah, to show up, for Marvel to show them up with their own concept, this has been going on for decades. So Superman and Wonder Woman as a concept is just another notch for Marvel. Even with Charles Soule, Marvel saw how, and I believe that Charles also said this, that Superman and Wonder Woman skyrocketed his career. He was a hot, excuse me, hot writer, and
Oh, yeah, because when you
Marvel,
think about it beforehand, I didn't really know who the name Charles Soule was, but then you started to know him because of Superman, Wonder Woman.
right, and he gave that credit, and he said that he started getting offers and everything. DC, being DC, did not give him. Um, Honestly, I would say that he made the right choice because DC didn't protect him with the constant harassment that he was receiving and the hate. So it was better for him to leave DC. Um, they still have a cordial relationship, I believe, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's very disappointing that they didn't do better to, make him feel safe. So
And Charles has said many times he would love to come back to DC.
right, so they obviously have it's no bad blood, but Marvel still saw the potential as him as a writer, and they took advantage of that. Marvel gave him the better offer. He became exclusive to Marvel for a very long time, and think he still is. So yeah, DC, again, you fumble a writer and you fumble a concept.
Exactly. So then you get to okay, so now we're going to talk about, so obviously we're going to start with Superman and Wonder Woman, and how, like, it's kind of funny. Every Elseworlds continuity, eventually he ends up with Wonder Woman. Well, actually, in any continuity, this is the good part about Wonder Woman being immortal, Britt. Even you have to admit this. Eventually, she ends up with Clark because Steve and Lois die out.
Well, that I mean, that's more of the I would say that's the easiest option, to like play the long game and wait for them to get Kenny kick the bucket. But honestly, it doesn't have to be that morbid. They can have as a multiverse, they can have them alive and well, just don't have them together. Have them as the friend. I mean, Perez, post-crisis Wonder Woman, showed how Steve can be somewhat essential, but you can have that relationship and he's a big brother figure.
Or
He's still
Morrison showed you he doesn't have to be with Lois for her to be her own character.
exactly. But you have fans who feel like only their importance basically hinges off of being the love interest, which honestly is not a flex. It's very much you are um diluting them as characters and they aren't independent at all. But
But by the way, can I say I love in this image of Jim Lee. I've never says for some reason I like how with their silhouettes only their logos are visible.
right, I love that image too. Um, yeah, so with Steve and Lois, I mean, I would say the most recent even is the Tomorrowverse. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
you have Clark and Diana, well, Earth 2 counterparts. They meet um, during the battle or known each other. She gives him that nickname of Shakespeare. It really became an endearment. And the thing is with that, what they very much a missed opportunity for her to call him that before, part three. That was something that kind of like to be a full circle. But of course, we will fix that in our own story. But um, yeah, they built this bond. There was obvious uh, attractions at the end of the JSA movie. And then you have, yeah, this long off screen type development, but they are together. Even though I really feel like Earth 2 Lois was a footnote and they had to kind of like throw that out there that he was with her, even though she kind of like it never really existed. But in my mind, I would say that he was with Diana the whole time. And yeah, you had Steve kick the bucket, but Diana didn't really show her feelings for him until he died, you know. But still, within that Earth, Clark and Diana still have this genuine relationship, and it can work again with the multiverse. And but on the flip side, for Earth One, which are the younger um counterparts, you didn't have a Diana because they felt obligated to have that rookie Superman with Lois. And they didn't really develop that relationship. It was just automatically, oh, Superman has to be with Lois.
Yeah, exactly. So as we can see, with there's been plenty of opportunities for Superman, Wonder Woman. So what we see here with the dynamic is that they all have like a leadership role in the Justice League. I mean, they both do. And we'll get to this when we talk about Mark Waid's Justice League Unlimited interview. And it's like they both. The way I always saw it is that the other superheroes look to Superman and Wonder Woman as like the examples of what to do as superheroes. They're the pair of them are the example that the others live up to, and Batman is the one that makes them all shake in their boots.
Right. They are the mother and the father of the superhero community, even though they treat the mother, they kind of neglect the mother sometimes. And they are very much into the uncle, which is Batman, and treats him as the golden boy or the cash cow. But all in all, still, Superman and Wonder Woman are the parents. Um, and that is something that DC really they need to delve more into and show that because they are the inspirations that pretty much started, this whole genre, at least for Superman. Of course, he started the superheroes. Wonder Woman as for female heroes, and yeah, we do look up to them as readers and in story for other heroes. I chose Wonder Woman 800 because, again, the ambiguity of their relationship, it goes as
Are you sure it's ambiguous? Look at the way he's holding her.
Jared.
That's like saying, I assure you, Clark knows how to get his hands dirty is ambiguous.
I knew you was gonna bring that up. Because it shows, okay, well, ambiguous, we can throw that out. Pretty much the complexity of their relationship, that you can read it either way. You can read it as a romance or you can read it as a friendship. And that's how multifaceted their relationship is. And, we love that. We love how this dynamic is not hinged on a romance, and it's something that can really be inspirational. Even like I said, as a friendship for, a man and woman to have that type of respect for each other. And that is something that DC lacks, obviously, because even if they were just friends, it will overshadow the traditional status quo. Um, so obviously, we haven't seen them interact as well as they should, even though, like we said, we'll get into that. What Mark Waid said, how they are a good team, but it feels like it's still something that they're trying to distant. And again, Marvel is a step ahead because Marvel does not care. Marvel will, if
We're Marvel. We're the biggest in the industry.
yeah, they will definitely have Clark and Diana as friends, as romantic interests, and basically, as long as it sells, they don't care what the internet says. Controversy sells, or what the fans supposedly like will sell. As long as it sells and make them money, they will keep it going. That is also the difference between Marvel and DC. DC, they care way too much about what's said on the internet.
Yep, which is kind of interesting because you would think if they really cared about it, they would kick Tom King off Wonder Woman. But I guess we can't all be lucky. So
Ha.
yeah, thank you. I had to. And you also have the thing about Superman and Wonder Woman is because they have so much power that you can have that conversation about like power and responsibility unless it's written by Tom Taylor and then it just becomes a domination fanfic.
Right. That is another thing, is that it, with the antis, they always say how Clark and Diana's relationship is about power scaling and eugenics, and it's not. They basically, if you actually read their conversations, it is always about, you know, the power that they hold is sometimes a burden, because even though they use it for good, they never stray away to use it for, selfish reason. It's more so like, because how good they are, good natured, it's like, I need to do more. And they put themselves in this position of like, if they don't do enough, they feel like they failed. And this power is like, they don't want to be worshipped or anything like that. They still want to have this sense of normalcy. And normal doesn't necessarily mean the um, living as a regular American, that Superman tends to fall into. It's just more so like, just be themselves and be relaxed and comfortable. But again, the antis, they don't like to read. So
Mhm.
they think of it as, yeah, they are going to lose their humanity, or the whole eugenics thing, something silly like that.
Exactly. So we have the characters and perception, as we said before about Superman and Wonder Woman, and how it's basically you have their moral dilemmas, their vulnerabilities, balancing love and duty. And the public perception thing, you could take that both in terms of like how the people of their Earth see them together. But you can also take it as to the way the fan base reacted to Superman and Wonder Woman. And I think what's kind of funny, the most real page of Superman and Wonder Woman was when it's like
Exactly.
it's the reception. It's like it's they're kissing, and behind them is like a collage of all the different people
Yes,
reacting.
reacting to
My
it.
favorite was like that one guy that says the forums are gonna have a field day with this.
Right. That page really, it in story, but also very much the perception of um the readers. And honestly, that is how Clark and Diana's relationship should be. It should be something that it can go either way, and that makes it more quote unquote realistic. And you're actually going, you know, um, having the fantastical with the realism. That is pretty much what we want to read. But again, DC is so stuck on this safe, fantastical side.
And by the
Then,
way, you just gave me an idea.
of course, I did. Yeah, so they are, like I said, they are very much stuck on just playing safe, and that is something that was very unique for Superman and Wonder Woman because you're actually exploring, the good, bad, and the ugly of their relationship and the perception of them even as individuals. And that's something that DC doesn't want to do with uh, Clark and Diana. They want to dilute them. They It's not necessarily a good thing, even with trying to have Superman as like this privileged, spoon fed, with the family. Well, even though his family is dismantled or whatever, but earlier rebirth, how it was just this perfect nuclear family that had everything. And then Wonder Woman, she was she didn't have everything. She basically still struggles, it seemed like, because writers like Tom King or Tomasi or whoever,
Jurgens.
Jurgens, or whoever has written her, that really just puts her through the ringer for no reason, and the outcome is a bunch of nothing. And also they make her very, I would say, stiff, uh, a stick in the mud. She doesn't have that personality, that free spirit that Perez gave her, or emphasized more on. They want to make her into a den mother, and that's not who Diana is, you know. So you have, even though Clark and Diana are the parents of the superhero community, that doesn't mean they have to be boring parents.
Yeah, exactly. So then now we're gonna get to the Squadron Supreme, and Chloe won't be undone because of John. There's plenty of ways they can undo it. So
Right. I mean, with that, John right now, he's very much, he hasn't been in the Superman books for a while. Even with, and I brought this up in our chat, Jared, about how Absolute Power, they had John go through the ringer, be possessed by Waller and the Brainiac Queen, and the aftermath, nothing. Like there's no interactions with Clark, not even Lois. She hasn't even said anything about her own son. The last time I think you had interactions with her and John was her own book that was awkward.
mhm.
um, but yeah, they have not had any type of interactions. And even in the Williamson book right now, it just seems like there's John does does not exist at all. Not even the
I'm
super
fine with that.
twins.
I'm fine with that. So
Right.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
yeah, John, he's very much disappearing out of the Superman books. He is not so much as his own character because they very much want him to be attached to other characters to have personality. But as far as being with the Superman, in within the Superman world, yeah, he's it's like he no longer exists.
Yeah. Okay. So here comes. All right. So I'm going to give you the origin for Hyperion and Zarda, and stop me if they sound familiar. Okay, so Zarda hails from the Utopian Isles on Earth 712, a society founded by the Kree with advanced longevity and superhuman abilities. It's basically a utopian island filled with only warrior women. She becomes an emissary to the outside world during World War II and joins the Golden Agency, a group of superheroes aiding the Allies. Hyperion. He's the last survivor of a destroyed world. I wonder. I wonder who these guys could be Marvel versions of.
I mean, to be so bold and so like, yeah, we definitely copied your homework, and
He even has Clark's powers.
yeah, this is definitely I copied your homework, and I even put your name on top of, the paper, even though my name is supposed to be on it. And, just changed a little bit up with the the locations and everything like that, but that's still very much Clark and Diana. If you didn't know, who they're very much interchangeable. Um, and it's quite hilarious. When I was doing a little research, it's kind of like, yeah, Marvel was basically saying, we see this concept, we know that it is a moneymaker, and we're going to use it and take advantage of it. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, because there has been some whispers or rumors about Squadron Supreme being in live action. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel tries to um, fast track that before DC can even get another Justice League movie out.
Well, fun fact. So you know what? The Squadron was created because they wanted to do crossovers with DC without paying DC. So they were like, just make our own Justice League. So then we get to Mark Grunwald's I almost said Justice League run. Isn't that a Freudian slip? So Mark Grunwald is a very interesting guy. So he was like an editor at Marvel. And yeah, so here's the omnibus that he wrote. And he loved comics so much that in the first printing of the first trade of Squadron Supreme, so when he died, he had himself cremated and his ashes poured into the ink.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And he always loved the Justice League of America, which is why these characters are literally Justice League of America. Like you have the Blur, you have Nighthawk, who is Batman, you have Arcana, who wears fishnets and does magic. The Archer, who falls in love with a character named the Lark, but also kind of reconditions her to love him. I don't think Ollie would do that, but you get my point. There's even a Firestorm. It's like pretty much this is Marvel's DC universe.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, that was very creative. It's
oh,
very
they even had their own Bizarro.
Yeah, it was definitely we're going to be resourceful.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I read this, one of the interesting things about this is so the basic plot of this series and the background is that Marvel's version of Darkseid took over the minds of the Justice League and used them to subjugate the Earth. So what the superheroes decide to do when they defeat them is we're going to create the perfect world. So they start their Utopian initiative, which is essentially to create a perfect world. And this is where they do stuff like ban like littering, take away the guns from everyone, and basically like what becomes the main like divide between Hyperion and Nighthawk, Nighthawk being Batman, is that they start doing this thing where they recondition the supervillains to become members of the Squadron and be heroes. So they're basically mind controlling them. So,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean that okay, that is kind of weird, but also it's like they're trying the reconditioning part if they could just like just rehabilitate them in a more dignified way, it would have been better. But the idea and the concept of them turning, villains into heroes, that is much better than how DC is basically doing a Harley Quinn. She has not um it, held accountable for what she did. And honestly, this sounds better than Injustice as well.
Oh, it's way better than Injustice because at least these guys aren't actually evil. And so the subplot of this, so this happens off panel, but Hyperion is basically switched with a double. And the double falls in love with Zarda. It's either Zarda or another character that's oddly like Wonder Woman named Thundra. Hyperion also dates her in the main Marvel universe. I'll get into this later. But what happens is, so the clone enters into a relationship with Zarda by killing that universe's Steve Trevor. Oh boy.
Honestly, that was funny to me because at first he was so like, okay, so he has amnesia and they talk, and that's something again that when Clark and Diana have moments alone, they can really be vulnerable and, have that moment of really understanding. And so this is their moment, or, well, Zarda and Hyperion, they have that moment as well. So they just click. And for him to, even, as a doppelganger, it was still the fact that regardless, they still clicked. And to kill, Steve, basically, I mean, he was already an old man and like already like half at death's door. So it's like, he just did him a favor. But yeah, it was just funny to me that he went on and Kenny Steve. Um, but it also shows how I would say it's a very selfish thing because Zarda is immortal, yes, but to have her with the same person like until his, last day of dying and him being an old man, can't really socialize or anything like that, and she basically has to take care of him. I just find that very selfish, and that's a going into the male fantasy and the power fantasy of DC, how even DC does with Lois and Steve. They want, whether it's Lois becoming immortal somehow, or Clark and Diana have to give up their powers, or and age with them. I just think that that's very selfish of them as wanting them to be just stuck with these human love interests.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this scene. So Hyperion his eyes get blasted by the clone, and it's like he's blind. He later gets essentially a special pair of sunglasses that'll help him see. But he's in the med bay. Zarda walks in, and she basically says, "All right, uh, it's the utopian way to speak forthrightly. High." She calls him High instead of Hyperion. It's basically her cow. There's something I must tell you. I fell in love with your duplicate, believing him to be you. He's dead now, but my feelings for you, are not. I want you to know that I love you, and I want to make you feel the same. And then, of course, I love Hyperion. Well, Zarda, I've always had the utmost respect and admiration for you, and then she just kisses him and goes, please shut up.
That is definitely Clark and Diana. Like
I
even the
just love
whole
that.
just the way that they interact, it does give earlier post crisis or even pre crisis. It very much gives that. I remember there is one um well, two issues. It's one where Flash, Barry, he says that he believed that Clark and Diana would marry. This
Hmm.
is mod era when Diana lost her powers. And then there's also where I think it was the Atom. I want to say Atom. Um, that says that Clark and Diana, they seem like the perfect match. And Diana says that she has a boyfriend, talking about Steve. But it's still the fact that, within that time of pre crisis, they had the potential. But this feels more in tune of pre crisis and actually, falling through with it.
Well, remember in the Brad Meltzer JLA run, you had Liberty Bell talking to Diana and saying, "What about Superman? You two are made for each other." And then Diana doesn't say no; she just says he's unavailable.
Right.
She doesn't say anything about, well, he's my friend and I respect him too much or anything like that. No, he says it's unavailable. But anyway, so at the same time as the Squadron is trying to create a perfect world, Nighthawk thinks they're becoming dictators. So he travels to the main Marvel universe, hits up Captain America, and is like, "Hey, dude, can you help me out here?" It's just significant because the first appearance of the Squadron Supreme were antagonists to the Avengers. Like you had it was basically Avengers versus the Justice League. But basically Nighthawk goes, "Listen, dude, I know we have some history, but they're basically taking over my Earth. Can you come help?" And then I think Cap shows up. But so at the same time as like in the later half of the run, Nighthawk is like recruiting heroes to the Squadron side and like undoing a few of the like mind controls and basically saying, "Hey, fight the Squadron. They're trying to kill you." But then it turns out that what happens is one of the villains kills Nighthawk. Like Batman dies in this universe. And at that, they finally see we didn't turn the world into a utopia. We basically turned it into a prison state. So we're going to disband the Squadron and we're going to hand the government back to the people.
Honestly, again, that is so much better
This is
than
basically Injustice before
Justice.
Injustice, but done way
Way
better.
better. Exactly. I mean, at least they weren't actually like turned into villains, totally out of character. It was just a misguided plan, but with good intentions gone wrong.
You know what's hilarious? This came out before Watchmen, and it's basically the same story as Watchmen, which makes me think, did Alan Moore read this beforehand?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of writers, you know, would read certain um other, writings to get inspiration. So maybe.
Maybe. So then we get, all right. Then we get the Supreme Power Universe. Now, here's the thing about the Supreme Power Universe. All right, but so by the way, the artist that drew these, so his name is Greg Land, and he's very controversial. Do you know why?
No, I don't.
So he's faced many accusations of tracing. Do you know what tracing is?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, he's faced many. So, and he's admitted that he like traces off of stuff that like he sees in, like magazines or newspapers, but also he traces from adult entertainment
Wh-
by his own admission.
Well, I mean, I
That's why
have.
if you see a lot of characters that like, he draws when they're like doing a battle cry, it looks like they're doing something entirely different.
Well, I honestly, at least I will give him a notch of respect because he actually admits it. There are artists that honestly, you can tell that they have traced something. A lot of like when there was before AI became a thing, with editing and stuff like that, you would have these photo bucket uh photos of like couples, just those random family photos or something like that that you edit, especially or with celebrities that you want to change into the heroes, like, edit that way. And it was a couple of images that were very popular around that um turned into memes, and you can tell it's kind of like, oh yeah, you definitely trace that from the pose and everything like that. Um, I think Yannick does the same thing with Wonder Woman Earth One. He was called out for that. I think for using adult images. Um, yeah, so I'm not surprised at all if artists they especially for if they want the characters to have like intimate scenes, they are going to do that. But my kind of respect level goes down when you don't admit to it. You know, you don't
Yeah.
have to. Tracing is it's a tightrope of inspiration and also just trying to get you might have the idea, you know, but you can't really convey it.
Visualize it, and that's
Yeah,
fine, but here's the problem. Like, let me put it this way, if he's using like images for inspiration, that's fine, 100%. Alex Ross does that when he takes a picture of someone in like a Superman pose so that he can have something to draw off of. The problem is Greg Land uses sources that he doesn't own or originally create, so it's essentially like he's copying from other people's work. But anyway,
right.
so essentially the thing about the Supreme Power universe. So what this was essentially making the Squadron Supreme more hardcore, more edgy. Like in this one, a lot of these similarities with Superman are still there. Hyperion is more of the Man of Steel, Zack Snyder-y version of Superman, and Zarda is more of the it's implied that she's an alien coming to conquer Earth, but she also, I believe, like turns good or something like that. I mean, like Hyperion, like gets killed, but she revives him with a kiss.
Oh, he became like Snow White or Sleeping Beauty.
Kind of like that. But I have the first trade of it, and it's actually not bad. And the images that we're seeing down here is from the Supreme Power event, which basically what that was. So early 2000s, Marvel launches the Ultimate line, which was essentially what would be the inspiration for the absolute DC universe. It's a side universe where they restart everything, and that way you could like get on the ground floor of stuff without it interfering with the main continuity. This is where you have like He Who Must Not Be Named got to start there on Spider-Man. You also had like the Ultimates, but on this, so the Supreme Power is basically the Ultimate Squadron Supreme. So Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four sends all these probes throughout the multiverse to try and find a way to save his friend Ben Grimm the Thing. So the probes have been like relatively sabotaged by Doctor Doom, and they basically turn into these like biomass bombs that like cover an entire planet in biomass. And what happens is the Squadron Supreme come to the main universe and say, hey, you screwed up our world. We're going to bring you to stand trial for your crimes. The Avengers show up, and we get a dope scene of Hyperion fighting Thor. And it later turns out that Thor brings in the main Squadron Supreme to fight this Squadron Supreme, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a lot of. It makes sense. But it's a lot of happenings.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on with this team. But anyway, so dynamics. Let's talk about these dynamics, Britt.
Okay, so I would say that yeah, they definitely are the darker versions of Clark and Diana. Well, from now I kind of know the difference between the older um when they first began to the Greg Land versions.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, they still have far more depth of, you know, I would say dealing with more dramatic conflict than Clark and Diana and DC as a whole does. You have of course, Batman, that's a little bit dark, but even he is seem like they are very much going safe with him. And again, that whole part of now, honestly, I want to read it a little bit more in depth now, understanding of utopian, because that can be a good concept. It's just again good intentions, but very much misguided.
They went a
Um,
little too far with how they were executing on that plan.
Right. So the newer versions of Zarda, as you said, that she came to Earth as sort of a villain, I guess. So she basically was kind of like Maxima.
In a way, I wouldn't be surprised if they based off of Maxima. I didn't read a ton of the Supreme Power like era Squadron, so I don't know if they eventually became if she eventually turned good. I probably will buy more of those traits to check them out now, though.
Yeah. So it's still very similar to Clark and Diana, where it is very much Diana. Well, Zarda, sorry, becomes lead if Hyperion is off or something, or she is the one that takes more of the strategic type role, and also she is the nurturer. Well, in the earlier uh, version, she was a nurturer just like Diana, and you can still see that dynamic of them basically being that mother and father of the Squadron Supreme.
Yeah, exactly. So then, okay, so now we're going to talk about special versions, a couple of special. We're going to give you guys a reading list, in other words. So Defenders number 112 from 1982, and this is the first appearance of Power Princess and Arcana, the Squadron version of Zatanna.
Oh, nice.
So there you go. There's that character. And by the way, Atchison says one thing they share in common with their DC counterparts is they never get a happy ending. They did in the Mark Grunwald run, though, because it continued in another, in like a different graphic novel later, and he kind of concluded it. But so again, Mark Grunwald, and it is essentially Watchmen before Watchmen. And I remember the reason why Alan Moore used the Charleston characters because he wanted to use originally the main DC characters, but DC told him no.
DC is always saying no to everything.
All the good ideas were saying no, and here's Marvel. I got it.
Right. That's definitely what it feels like. I mean, DC is the definition of missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get Supreme Power, which is essentially a more modern reimagining of the Squadron. And again, it's more dark. It's more like it's more edgy. Let me put it to you that way. And it's like they even become like more or less a tool of foreign policy. And then they're like, should we be doing all this stuff? So it's
I
actually
mean,
really
at
cool
least,
the way they do that. Yeah, go ahead.
honestly, at least you are like exploring these different conflicts that they have these good intentions, but very much misguided, and they learn from it. And that's the thing that DC has a problem with, because with absolute power, I mean, you have this where all, all of the heroes lose their power. Waller is trying to take over the world and um, imprison the heroes, but yet the ending, like there's no type of true fallout of the ending. Waller is in prison, yeah, but and when they got their powers back, some people, kind of switched powers or something like that or whatever, but it still feels so much less impactful. And you are making it seem like um it's just okay, we got through that, but it's always going to be a happy ending for DC characters. It's never something as like Kingdom Come where you actually feel the consequences. And yeah, that's an excuse me, an Elseworld, but it still feels like, that story very much impacts DC, and that is something that it pretty much put a standard. for DC of how they deal with conflicts and drama. Um, and like I said earlier with John, he was tortured. He was possessed, and now we are supposed to pretend that he is all together mentally. The same thing that they did when he was stuck in a volcano for supposedly, 7 years within that time, and tortured by Ultraman, who looks exactly like his dad. And now we are supposed to believe that he was again mentally right in the head. They do not want to put these characters actually through the ringer and have them deal with the consequences. And that is why so many fans are less invested with DC because they don't want to take that type of risk. Which honestly, if of course you and I were to write for DC, yeah, we would probably have the whole entire fandom mad at us.
Oh, we would get death threats, but I'm like, I don't care. Anyway, so then we get to again. So you get Squadron Supreme as the continuation of Supreme Power. And it's just continuing that story, and we get a little bit more of like Hyperion and Zarda in there. So then we get to this series. All right, I have this series, and it is. Let me pull up my visual aids. 3 trades. Now, okay, what this is. So Marvel has this concept, this team called the Illuminati. And what that is, it's like, it's representatives of like all the different parts of the Marvel universe. Like you have Iron Man, Professor X, Namor, who's basically their version of Aquaman, but he's more of an a-hole. You have, let's see, who else? Black Bolt, who's the leader of the Inhumans. His power is he can't speak because otherwise he sends out a massive shockwave. And then Mr. Fantastic. So at this point, a writer named Jonathan Hickman was doing an Avengers book, and the idea was that the multiverse worlds were starting to collide and lead to catastrophe. So what the Illuminati decided to do is they would actually destroy worlds so that to protect their own, because they're like, eventually this is going to like screw with ours. So what this series leads to, these squadron members are representatives from each of the multiverse worlds that they destroyed, that the Illuminati destroyed. So they show up in the main Marvel universe during a time where they're having a second civil war, and they go, okay, we're doing this our way by any means necessary. First thing they do, Hyperion uses his heat vision and cuts off Namor's head.
Wow.
Then you discover, okay, so I told you that these are all like squadron members from the multiverse. All right, so the Zarda betrays the team because she's from an Earth where they're called the Squadron Sinister, basically Earth 3. And what happened is, and Atchison basically summarizes it. So on this, the multiverse worlds were being destroyed, and unfortunately, the Mark Grunwald Earth of the Squadron Supreme series that you read, that Earth gets destroyed, and Zarda is sent to escape. So she escapes. She meets evil Zarda. We'll call her Suprema. How's that? So she meets Suprema in the multiverse, and Suprema switches places with her. She still survives. Zarda still shows up on the main Earth, but she doesn't have her powers. So she's going after essentially this version of Power Princess. As far as I know, I haven't read enough to know does she ever find her. But the point is, this is also where you get, like, remember I showed you that series in the multiverse episode of Hyperion being with Thundra? It's that.
Oh, okay.
And then, so eventually they go. So essentially, what this is Marvel having the Justice League kill DC Marvel heroes. Obviously, they all come back because of the BSery they pull in the multiverse. It's so good. Plus, here's the thing, Britt. I hate Namor. Namor is, in my mind, Marvel's Lois Lane in that he is the biggest D-bag in Marvel. Like, he tries to get with other guys' women. Like he's constantly trying to have sex with Sue Storm, Mr. Fantastic's wife, and Emma Frost. At the time, Scott Summers' girlfriend. So this guy has no respect for, as to quote Green Lanterns, dibs.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm like, wood chipper him. That's my way of killing every character I hate.
Yeah. Killing them all.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think of this Squadron series?
Again, it's going, honestly, if DC were to have handled, I know that Injustice is a video game, but at the same time, even the video game, if they were to handle it this way, I think like it would have saved the perception of Superman and Wonder Woman in particularly, and to not have people think that they are bad, like completely bad characters, and
Well,
that they
yeah,
do.
in when you think about it, the Squadron, when they're like do wrong, they own up to it and they're like, okay, this is not good. Back off.
Yeah, but the way DC handles things is like when they are wrong, they are just completely wrong and it's either glossed over or they just continue on piling on the wrongdoings. And where you do have where Superman, he's basically irredeemable. Um, unless of course he needs Lois as a putting a leash on him. Diana, she is the perception of Diana and the Amazons is just totally off kilter. You have, everyone thinking that the Amazons are ruthless, man haters, things like that. And they never address that. No, this is not how, well, at least the DC Amazons are, that it is a different Earth or something like that, or something did go wrong to where they do have to go through extreme measures or something like that. But DC doesn't do that. They don't have these characters have that, you know, I guess that moral compass that again they want to gloss over things. If you want to um, insert drama, you have to go through it. Go through with it and give us a satisfying conclusion. And it feels like Marvel and with the Squadron Supreme, they hit that note, um, right or correctly.
Yeah, exactly. What's up, Sean Franklin? And so then we get to Heroes Reborn. So what happened is this was technically set up in a previous event called War of the Realms, which is basically a big Thor event, where we see this one Earth where, okay, so Agent Coulson and Mephisto is the Satan of the Marvel Universe, create this world where actually they remake all of reality, as a matter of fact, to make it where the Avengers were never formed. In their place were the Squadron Supreme. Now, here's the funny part. They went very far with this. Like, okay, the Squadron like when we first see the Squadron go into action, Hyperion does the Superman shirt rip, and the image on the panel is just his logo. So
Wow.
they essentially turn him into that. He's a high school teacher of American history, so they're doing that whole American way thing. But anyway, so Jason Aaron, as a matter of fact, was writing the Avengers at the time. As far as I read, it was a crappy run. But anyway, his main run was actually pretty. This event was good. So what happens is, all right, and yes, I have the omnibus for that as well, because it's basically the entire Marvel universe turns into the DC universe. Like Peter Parker Spider-Man is Jimmy Olsen. Ironically, there's no Lois Lane analog.
This is so funny that this came out in 2021, which I think it was a not so much as an uproar, but it was basically like a haha DC, because at that time nostalgia fans were um uh praising Rebirth. But then once that novelty, wore off of Rebirth, and you can tell the whatever band-aid they tried to put on DC's missteps, it really started to crack.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
um and this is also 2021 was the article from, oh gosh, I forgot. It was an article basically summing up what happened with New 52, and how it wasn't what, those jabbing or those hateful articles that, you know, s- places like CBR or Screen Rant kept throwing out. This was an actual oral, report, even with quotes from creatives that worked on New 52, how they actually felt about it, and gave the information, the correct information about New 52. So, and then also it was the 2021 where they began filming the DC documentary. So, for all of this to happen in 2021, and then you have Heroes Reborn, and to see how Marvel is bringing back the Squadron Supreme, and it's basically like the new 52 versions. It's very much Marvel saying, "Hey, we can do new 52 a little bit better than uh, you know
Yeah,
um,
essentially.
how
So,
you handled it."
do you know how they play off of Zarda's immortality in this run? All right, you're gonna love this. So, this should remind you of a story you told me before we went live. So, it shows where Zarda was during World War II. And what's up, Brown Destroyer? So, okay, guess what happens? So, she's with some soldiers. They're drinking mead and celebrating. She holds up Adolf's head.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, she has legit she beheaded him. And what's kind of funny is she lives in the Statue of Liberty's torch, where she has like all of her stuff, and like on the grass of the Statue of Liberty, she has like, what's the word? She has like a bunch of super villains turned to stone by Medusa, including Hercules. So, and what's kind of funny is then she goes, I'm lonely. If I just whisper Hyperion's name in dulcet tones, he comes a running.
Wow.
It goes to the point, by the way, Britt, where Hyperion, Zarda, and Nighthawk are called the Big Three.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Oh,
They were trying
oh,
to.
Nighthawk is known as It's called the Squad Supreme of America. He's known as America's greatest detective.
Wow, they did not
Gwen
sugarcoat this at
Stacy is
all.
Batgirl in this, named Nightbird. You know how Hyperion? So they do the death of Hyperion, except it's Wolverine with magic claws that kills him. So when Hyperion comes back, Green Lantern, basically named Dr. Spectrum, takes Wolverine, drops him off on the moon, and just leaves him there.
Wow.
Because when you think about it, yeah, he'll heal, but he's not going anywhere.
That is wild, honestly.
Oh yeah. Oh, it gets way worse. It's like the blur is like so when we first see them, it's like they're each battling all these different supervillains, and it's like what's really cool is that when we see Zarda, she's like basically fighting an evil god, and it's pretty much Wonder Woman. And and as the series goes on, you also see like Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, she becomes Wonder Girl basically.
Oh, wow. And the thing is, DC had just wanted Mary Marvel to become like a Wonder Girl for,
Oh god.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, they also do the I'm trying to find this one storyline that they do. You'll love this. So what they do is, oh yeah, so they do the Thunderbolts, but literally make it the Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah.
It is no, but to the point where when they come back from a mission, though, their minds are wiped.
Well, that is much better than Amanda Waller having a bomb inside their necks.
Yep. And Hyperion was like with a space team before he went to Earth, and he was getting ready to go home. And they went on one last mission that went wrong, and he had to seal away his team and was all alone. Then he came to Earth. Then Peter Parker becomes Jimmy Olsen / another character named I think it was Shutterbug. Then you have Zarda kills Professor X. Yeah, these characters are much more like really hardcore than like the traditional DC superheroes. But what I liked about this is seeing Marvel basically do DC better than DC. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah. Honestly, that pretty much sums it up. It's that Marvel, again, they have their issues, but the one thing that they are good at is taking a concept that DC neglects and somehow, can make it better.
And it's kind of funny, though the story ends, but the Squadron Supreme are still in the main Earth. So DC could bring these characters back at any point. They also have this nice moment where Peter Parker, where like Hyperion is just hovering on a rooftop and near like the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man swings by and goes, "Hey man, you're one of those new Squadron people. Are you looking for someone?" And then Hyperion goes, "I'm just looking for a friend." He doesn't know Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he goes, "You sound familiar." And then Peter just swings away. It's really good. Oh, they turned Deadpool into Harley Quinn.
Well, actually, Deadpool was very much Harley Quinn before Harley Quinn.
Yeah, essentially. By the way, they make a joke of the whole Super Wonder versus Wonder Bat stuff where Zarda shows up in the Bat Cave, basically, and Nighthawk is like, he wouldn't like you being here. He doesn't like when I'm alone with you.
That is honestly more so Earth 3.
Yeah, probably. I would say so. Oh, so by the way, they legit in dialogue say Zarda is with Hyperion because when Wolverine kills Hyperion, Zarda says, "Hyperion, you'll be avenged, my love." Yeah, they went to the Michael Conrad School of Subtlety. By the way, here's the image of Hitler's head.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so first with Zarda can be the darker version of Diana. Like that is, and again, that is the whole point is that these copycats, they don't have the baggage that the, real versions have. But we would not want to see Diana, with a severed head of anyone. That is something that, you know, honestly, the no kill rule is BS because at some point you have to make that sacrifice and you have to have these characters, um, live with the consequences or, go through that trauma that they would go through. But at the same time, we don't need to actually see them decapitating or killing. It's just the idea, though, of going through it that I would want to read um, Diana or Clark, go through something like that. And pretty much what we are doing with Shelterverse is that.
Yeah, exactly. But can you imagine if we wrote the Squadron Supreme? Oh, there'd be so many DC jokes. Is there
Oh,
any
definitely.
is there any possibility that Absolute Wonder Woman meets Absolute Soups? I mean, Absolute Wonder, they'll meet for sure. in terms of absolute super wonder, the jury's still out on that. And we'll talk about that as a matter of fact, because yeah, at the end of this, we're gonna review Absolute Wonder Woman #2. We'll see. So what'd you think of Heroes Reborn?
That is, I mean, honestly, I would much rather read the entirety of Squadron Supreme than DC right now. As of right now. If it was New 52 again, and we had um, you know, the book, I would read that. But as of now, I am moving further and further away from DC and going towards Marvel. So any recommendations, of course, that you have for me, I am all open to it.
I
And
gotcha.
Green Lanterns as well.
Well, yeah, that goes beyond saying.
Yes.
So similarities. So yeah, they both are basically power couples. They both are heroes, or their perception of heroes in terms of Hyperion and Zarda at times, but they always steer back to the heroic ideal. And that's what I really like about the Squadron. No matter what, even when they don't necessarily act like heroes at first, they steer toward being heroes.
Right. It, I would say pretty much the similarities are the origin, that dynamic of them being a natural couple and a power couple. But they do have, I would say they have more differences if you want to really analyze deeply. Because honestly, I would say that Zarda and Hyperion, they are a little bit more, or they have the potential to have this more depth, because like I said, DC, they have really um, diluted Clark and Diana's character, where we know that they are multifaceted characters and being a couple, but they are very much surface level. And I feel like Zarda and Hyperion, you can really um, explore what should be explored with Clark and Diana.
Exactly. So then we get a little bit of the differences. And yeah, so some of their backgrounds are slightly changed. And obviously, what leads them into a relationship is different. I mean, Bizarro didn't kill Steve Trevor, although if I wrote Wonder Woman, that'd be the first thing I would do.
No, Steve is basically, honestly, with Steve, I prefer, as I said, I prefer them not to be Kenny. You don't have to unalive
Oh,
Steve and
come
Lois
on, Britt. You're ruining my fun.
because it just fuels that sort of anti-ness of you. Okay, think of it as how they have Clark and Diana now. They cannot be on the same page like more than a page. um, they don't talk to each other, mention besides Tom King's obsession with having Batman and Superman in Wonder Woman's book because he wants to have
Right,
her
Batman and Superman. That's really what he wants to do.
exactly, and the comparisons. I really don't count that as genuine of showing their friendship because he did not show that. But on the ordinary, you know, they don't have that genuine friendship anymore. So, and it really just, and it's so obvious that they are very much distant. So basically, we're taking the higher road with Clark and Diana and showing, no, we aren't threatened by this traditional status quo, you know, because basically Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship can overshadow this the traditional status quo. That is why they aren't friends and so distant now. But just like with New 52, Steve and Lois was very much alive. They were just in the background because they weren't the love interest. And they can still, that is up to the writer to give them something else to do or actually put in the work, to make them independent and give them a compelling story so they can be independent. But for Clark and Diana, their relationship doesn't rely on Steve and Lois to be unalived. It doesn't. And we need to get away from that narrative because, again, it just shows or it puts that perspective out there that Superman and Wonder Woman um are threatened or whatever by the traditional status quo, and that's not it. It's more so the traditional status quo is threatened by Superman and Wonder Woman.
Can I at least have him trip on a rock?
Oh yeah, Steve can probably
I would
um
have him be, you know, Clark Kent is always seen as being like clumsy. That would be Steve.
yeah, I mean he can fall and trip, get knocked over the head or something like that. Definitely.
It
Um
might make him less of a stalker. Anyway, continuing. Then we have perceptions of the characters. So in terms of fans, so with Superman and Wonder Woman, obviously the fans are divided. Really, Britt? Fans are divided. Really? I would never have known that.
very much water is wet statement, I know, but it is that's what it is.
And if you notice, what's hilarious is that the Squadron Supreme fans are largely united. If you could find Squadron Supreme fans,
Well, that is that is the advantage that they have is that it's so like so I wouldn't even say limited, but that's the word or
niche.
a yeah, that the fans know the story. They are accepted, have accepted, whatever status quo that they have. They aren't really just um locked into 80 plus years of something.
Mhm.
They have made the established that there can be changes to these characters, and those fans, whoever are fans of the Squadron, they accept it. And it's the same thing, pretty much like Batman. You can throw him into any um, story, status quo, whatever, and even if the fans do complain at some point, it's not enough to, make DC feel threatened or reverse anything unless it was like how they did for the Black Label debacle. But as far as actual story wise, you can do certain things with Batman and it can sell. But with Superman, you or in Wonder Woman, you have to stick with a status quo, or you can't go too far of taking a risk, or they'll get cold feet and backpedal. So yeah, with the fans, they just take it or leave it. With DC fans, it's kind of like, no, we want this status quo. That's it. That's all. Even if straying outside of tradition, obviously it sells, it's still a no for them.
Exactly. So then, oh yeah, and actually, Brown Destroyer says here's the thing. I don't think that Superman and Wonder Woman characters are traditional. Is that the writers that are writing them are probably born in the '60s or the '80s? That's my problem. And I've said this before. DC should honestly start aging out a lot of these writers because here's the problem. These writers assume that the way these characters were written back then will work with the audience of today. And honestly, that's part of why Marvel kind of outsells DC because Marvel essentially what it does is Marvel makes the comics world reflect the real world, and that's their thing. And that's fine. I'm not saying turn DC into Marvel, but I'm saying every now and then you have to shake up how you write these characters. You can't constantly write Superman the way he was in like post crisis because otherwise fans are going to think he's boring.
Right. Um, like what we said, is that with Marvel, I would say even with, you know, MCU at the beginning, a lot of people didn't think that you wouldn't think that Iron Man would outgrow, Superman
Mhm.
um or just the entire Justice League. But Marvel or MCU, they or even Captain America, you know, Captain America, I would say it wasn't so dark, I don't think. It was just something that really connected with the audience. But with Superman, it's something that is disconnected because they want to basically recapture the 70s movie. They want to capture Reeves' personality, his in just that whole feeling and setting, and that's just something that you can't do. You have to move Superman forward. He is supposed to be the man of tomorrow. He's not the man of yesterday, but that is what DC continues on doing with his character. And even with Man of Steel, I mean, you still had an inspirational Superman. You
Hmm.
know, he was in a very realistic world
Hmm.
that isn't so quickly accepting of him. And I think that's also something that these Superman fans just don't want to explore is even with New 52, you know, you had the government torture him, but yet he still became the man of the people. He still became the Superman who protected the world, regardless of the government. He just wasn't a government stooge. And for some reason, these fans didn't like that, that he, you know, stood up against the government or stood up against officers. Um, and Man of Steel, the same way. He was his own hero. He wasn't following suit for the government. And with the darker theme with even dealing with Krypton, you know, and things like that, they just don't want those type of themes and don't want those type of storylines that really put Superman, you know, through the ringer and have him have those deep insecurities or the emotion of crying or feeling sad. He has to be this macho, um, chest out, hands on the hip, you know, standing tall. And that was one thing also that was a problem with Wonder Woman, I think it was 175, you know, when he was um, crying in uh, when it was for 9/11. For an editor to say that no, Superman can't be shown crying like that, he has to be shown as the like basically given prep prep a pep talk or a speech. You know, no, we don't want to see that. You know, even as a
Boring
strong
at that point.
right, even a strong man can cry. You know, it's okay.
I've done it
And
many times, mostly while watching Zack Snyder movies, but that's just me. But you know, see, here's the thing, Brett. You make a good point. All right, I am the perfect example of this. When I first got into superheroes, not necessarily comics, but superheroes, I thought Superman was kind of a dweeb. I didn't like the character because I thought it was boring. Excuse me.
right.
Okay, I thought I was sneezing. But then,
Hmm.
I read the new 52 when I got into comics, and then I watched Man of Steel, and I was like, oh wait, I get it now. That this is what the character is so good at. It's like when you bring these when you have these more grounded stories for the at least the origin. Because what Zach was doing is, yeah, he deconstructs the superheroes, but then he deconstructs them. So when he builds the characters back up to what they were, to what we know them as, guess what? Now we have a bigger appreciation for who Superman is because we understand who he is at his core.
Right. I mean, we don't want sunshine and rainbows all the time. We just, especially in modern day, we don't want that sugarcoating. Like, you want those type of stories that really are profound, especially with these heroes, because you want to. It's already the fact that they feel like, or you know, the readers or in story of the civilians feel like, oh, life is easy because they have superpowers. They can, you can run fast, fly fast, you know, heat vision, you know, things like that. But to show them actually going through the moral struggles, the emotional struggles of things that aren't easy, you know, those types of decisions that they have to make. And again, going back to Wonder Woman 800, how he says that he has to have some suffering. He can't, you know, play the space Jesus and fix everything. He has to have you know, can't be in all places at once. Because that's when if you think that they lose humanity already, what do you think if they fix everything and you
Mhm.
become into a utopia? So no, we want to have a world that's more realistic, that's a little bit more um, not so easy to fix or not so easy to accept these heroes. And that is the better thing for Squadron and
In fact,
Hyperion
but
and
by the way, Atchison says, "Sorry, Brit, but Twitter said that if Superman isn't smiling, then he's not Superman."
and Twitter can go put that where the sun don't shine. Honestly, because yeah, Superman not smiling is okay. I mean, he isn't a robot. He isn't an android. If you want Superman to be human, if you want him to have humanity, then he has to show more emotions other than smiling. That is how you can tell of the, you know, how hypocritical and the double standards these fans have. They want these characters to be human, but be human in a very superficial type of way, which is living as just a regular American. The Daily Planet, working at the Daily Planet, um, having the Kents alive, eating apple pie, um, basically self hatred towards his own birthright, and being with a human. That's all they are pretty much worried about. But being truly human is going through, basically hell and back and learning from it and acknowledging, the consequences and showing the consequences. And again, for Mark Waid to have, he, he is very wishy-washy and, and has this
Mark
kind of
Waid, wishy-washy.
with Kingdom Come, and how he says that it's a fable and, it's something that the wrong things are taken from it, which is, but at the same time, no, I think that the right things are taken from it because you have that expectation of a story like that to happen in the main universe because you want these characters to struggle and learn
But
and
Brit,
actually see.
Superman can never fail.
Right. And that's why Superman has to struggle to connect with the modern audience because we go through things and we want these characters. Yes, it is an escape asism, but at the same time, we still want these characters to again have these moments of vulnerability, and we as readers go through that emotion with them, and we are learning too a lesson, of life. And that again, that is how you balance the fantastical with the realism. And that is something of why these characters are who they are. They are not so much as a self-insertion, but pretty much an inspiration of real world events or something like that. Superman, he was a creation of two um immigrants, you know, uh, Jewish boys, So in tell of what they dealt with in life, you see Superman, which is Clark Kent being the nobody and the popular girl or something like Lois ignoring him, being mean, but then she goes for the popular guy, which is Superman. Wonder Woman, she represents, and the Amazons represents women who have been abused and who find their strength, and um, the reincarnation of them is basically women who find a new a new them, find themselves in a new way and fight back against their abusers or of what they've dealt with and become stronger and become more self sufficient and independent, and to fight for equality. That is what Wonder Woman represents. So yeah, I would say that no, Zarda doesn't represent that feminism type analogy that Wonder Woman does. However, she's still, I would say, if you want the more warrior um, perspective of Wonder Woman, that DC fumbles all the time because they go too far of the extreme. I would say the warrior aspect, Zarda is a one up on Diana because she has a more balanced perspective of that.
So, as you guys know, by the way, so 90% of Superman fans think he was created in 1986. Therefore, it's the only valid
Yes, they
interpretation.
do.
Yeah,
The editors
exactly.
as the editors, writers as well, because again, with the baggage that they saddle with Superman and Wonder Woman, everything is basically from post-crisis. They do not acknowledge pre-crisis at all. No, even though it's Elseworlds, it's still like Kingdom Come, very much impactful, and they just refuse to acknowledge anything that wasn't written by Byrne or Jerkins.
Exactly. So, as you guys know, whenever we do a couples comparison, we like to make up our own like crossover. Like, what would happen if these characters crossed over? So that's exactly what we did. Hang on, if this slide will turn. There you go. Of course, I had to use the ZSJL thing for Justice League, but that's just me. Very so, Britt. All right, impress me.
All right, so with this, of course, a I didn't know which cosmic like because like you said, Marvel has their own dark side. So
Mm-hmm.
you had a choice between Thanos and Galactus,
Mm-hmm.
and or we go with Darkseid and Anti-Monitor.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, hmm, I didn't know which one. So either way, you can choose out of the four. But they basically want to merge these worlds together because they feel that force of energy, they feel that force of power and want it for themselves. But then once they get it themselves, they want to destroy both the Marvel universe and the DC universe. And this is basically was inspired by Absolute Power and DC versus Marvel and the Absolute Universe of how when seeing Squadron Supreme, I was like, oh, this is how Absolute Universe was created because it very much feels like this is what DC wanted. They wanted their own Squadron Supreme with the Absolute verse.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the DC version of Darkseid's name Overmind.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least that's what I'm seeing from the book right now.
Hmm.
So there you go. You can also do Overmind, but yes, essentially it is that, and it is when you look at the Justice League and the Squadron side by side. Yeah, it looks even more blatant.
Right. So basically they meet, so at first it was going to be just Clark and Diana versus Hyperion and Zarda. But then it was kind of like, no, let's have the whole Justice League and the Squadron because now it's even more so that they are basically fighting against their doppelgangers. And yeah, that will be um, darker versions of themselves, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
So you have them meet and in a neutral spot, and is that was inspired by the Tomorrowverse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, part I would say of
Part what?
the part two or three of Crisis, part
Okay.
two of Crisis when they are in that field or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That Anti-Monitor didn't kind of screw up. Uh-huh. Yeah. So they meet each other and they feel like, oh, they are the enemy. Basically, like the DC side feel like this is another Earth 3. So they, of course, clash and fight, and then it's up to, of course, Diana and Clark to feel like, oh, wait, we are all fighting for the same thing. And especially with the taunting as they're fighting, it feels like they have the same power, the same type of mindset, maybe the same fighting style and everything like that. So once they realize that, okay, maybe we can work together for this common enemy, um, you know, we can save the world and ourselves. And so what they do is they split up in pairs, but the twist is Clark goes with Zarda and Hyperion goes with Diana.
Oh,
So
good.
he's
Interesting.
and what they do is they basically learn from each other and they see that even in the multiverse or this whole big verse of joining companies of DC and Marvel and our doppelgangers, we are still very much connected together, you
Mhm.
know, and to see or visualize, Clark and Zarda, or Zarda even flirting with Clark because he feels like, oh, you're like my Hyperion, and you know, I sort of like you, and
Mhm.
then Hyperion has this admiration, but he sees that Diana is a little bit nicer
Mhm.
than Zarda, but they still learn from each other, and it feels like I'm still with my partner. Of course, you have Batman and with his doppelganger, and they are
Nighthawk.
very much, you know, distant, but
Mhm.
they can work together as detectives. So everyone is basically having fun with their own doppelganger and just learning from each other. Like I said, from
Watch. You could have like Nighthawk is complaining about how Zarda and Hyperion are all over each other, and then Batman goes, "They do that on yours too."
right. Um, and also another thing that I didn't mention earlier, but it's also about sacrifice too.
Mhm.
With seeing again with going with the darker theme, you get that sense of that, you know, Hyperion and Zarda, Clark and Diana, they will make that sacrifice, if necessary. Um, Again, going with I said I visualized the Tomorrowverse versions of Clark and Diana for this story, and thanks to you, Jared, for that ending of, we have to make certain decisions. And so with this story, it's kind of like one of us have to make that decision to make the sacrifice to give up our energy, in order to basically overload whether it's dark side or anti-monitor or whatever, overload them to where it completely bursts and then everything, reverses itself and go back to normal. And you have where they decide to do it all together. It's kind of like, if we're going to make this sacrifice, you're not going to make the sacrifice alone, and we're going to do it together and survive it, maybe. Um, Obviously, they do survive it, but they also just, again, learn from each other and take that inspiration of having their partnership a little bit stronger.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to more of the plot.
Yeah, so after that, you know, honestly, I would say I feel like Anti Monitor will be good for this story. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah,
And I'm going to
probably
say,
of the characters that could do this because the Anti-Monitor is like destroying worlds. I could see that.
yeah, so of course I wouldn't say it's that version that we saw in Tomorrowverse
No,
because
no. That was my complaint with the movie. They royally screwed up the Anti-Monitor. He
I have
doesn't look like a flat dude in a suit. He looks like this.
right. I have no idea. Okay, obviously we can't be too hard on them because of the budget. But they
I'm
could have
pretty
done
sure you could make him. You could draw him differently. And then it's like, oh, an army of anti-Mars. I'm like, since when?
Yeah, it was terrible. I but I'm trying to give them at least um some points for respecting Diana.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I want to, but then they do that.
right. But like I said, they are making the decision to make the sacrifice of giving the energy of what Anti-Monitor is looking for. And of course, again, the inspiration is how powerful Diana is. Um, a conversation about being immortal, and how will they deal with that? That is something that Zarda, I think that she feels a little bit more um accepting of it. She feels that, I'm immortal, so I can do anything. But Diana, she has this sort of feeling, kind of like how she did in the movie. It feels like everyone that I care about, they don't have that luxury. And it's life that she values so much is so precious. While Zara, she feels like life is life. You're gonna kick the bucket. That's that's on you. I feel like she would have that type of attitude. And once she talks to Diana and understand why Diana has a problem with immortality, she maybe changes her perspective. And that makes her feel like, well, I'm going to make this sacrifice as well, to help with life.
Exactly. So then, all right. So then we get to see the perspectives of the characters.
So like I said, we see that they are very much alike but still vastly different. You have where Clark sees that Hyperion is a little bit darker than he is, but if we go with the new 52 versions, um, they are kind of the same. They have that edginess to them. So, but they still admire the good intentions. If we go with the Tomorrowverse versions and a little bit older, not the Superboy version, um, you see that with Hyperion, that Clark has gone through a lot, but he still maintained his his good nature, being a leader and being inspirational for the Justice League. With Diana and Zarda, Diana sees that fierce warrior spirit, but Diana is a little bit more nicer and a little bit more calmer with that and balanced with, but also leans more to her compassion and the ambassador type mindset, while Zarda, she relishes in her immortality and the warrior spirit. They they bond over that, but at the same time, it's still a learning thing for Zarda that life is precious and that it's something that you can't just um, think that okay, life is life. You like I said, you die and but I'm still young and I still live. No, you don't take it like that. It's just something that still cherish those, um, you know, cherish that life.
Exactly. I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. So kind of turning the whole immortality thing into a positive thing. I like that. That
Right.
actually really works. And then she goes and just think if there's any if you have any real enemies, you just have to wait. They'll eventually go away. And then Lois, I would love if like Hyperion and Zarda and Superman and Wonder Woman are like hanging out, and then Superman and Wonder Woman are describing Lois, and then Hyperion goes, "Yeah, we don't have anyone on our Earth," and then Clark goes, "Oh my gosh, sounds like a paradise."
Zarda, she'll be ready to go fight. Diana would be like, no, we don't do that. We don't fight, mortal women. Not like that. Zarda,
Mm-hmm.
well, I
Yes.
would just like to have a word at least.
Yeah. 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 So, and I really like that. That was a great story, Britt. Now, as so, Britt kept bringing this up. Mark Waid's interview with the Justice League and how Superman and Wonder Woman are basically the like commanders. Okay, I liked what he said. The problem is that he emphasized Diana being a warrior.
Right, the warrior and the military. I need Diana to get away from the military because in modern day that is just terrible. You know, for what it represents now, and just like the American way, that was supposed to be a positive of like we know it's the land of the free, more opportunities, you know, just different cultures coming together. That is the American way. However, the way DC has molded it to be and the way reality has molded it to be, it is very um discriminatory. It's very limited and uh a racial divide, things like that. It's just not a positive thing anymore. And so the same thing with the military, especially with knowing what has happened, with the innocent caught in the crossfire and stuff like that. And just within that environment of even, you know, female soldiers being abused, things like that. That's just something that Diana shouldn't be advocating for. And especially again with her Amazon sisters, what they dealt with men in uh, that type of position or that equivalent of power, you know. So yeah, we just want her to get away from that military type thing, especially with thinking that she is so kill happy and violent and sword swinging and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my concern. Now, I still have to read the first issue of JLU, but it doesn't look like he's going. So at least this Diana doesn't necessarily have a
Okay,
sword yet. So maybe they're
right.
not going for the warrior part yet.
No, the what he did do, right? His wording awful, but how he has Diana here, she's very much the strategic mind. She's in the strategic mindset where she tells, Clark to come with her um and the others go do this, go do that. She's very much giving orders, and that is what Diana does. She
Mhm.
she takes control of the situation, and she tells, okay, you go here because that is your like you are needed here, you are needed there. Um, Split the group up into how they are basically can help each other, and that is what Diana that is who Diana is. She's very diplomatic in that sense, but she knows how to get everything together. Um and the way she does command the group of where to go, yeah, she very much takes lead. And Clark, he follows her, and that's a good thing. I just hope that Waid doesn't make her. I I honestly think that even though Mark Waid said that he doesn't get Diana, I feel like that came from the fact of Chloe's fans and writers like Gail Simone telling him how it was bad in Kingdom Come, but he has to um, remember of the circumstances within that story, of how Diana became that the way that she was, more a hardened warrior because of the circumstances. But honestly, Mark Waid can write Diana very well.
Yeah, and Atchison refuses to buy anything with Mark Wade's name on it. Fair enough. That's your right as a consumer. I still try it out, see if he can do this. But yeah, so surprising no one, Absolute Wonder Woman 2 came out and was the top selling comic of the week. Isn't it funny how that ends up? Britt, correct me if I'm wrong. Was Tom King's Wonder Woman even remotely the top selling book of the week?
Oh, I think it was, well, on, they, what's weird is that, Bleeding Cool does the pictures, like the chart, so they have the cover,
Hmm.
and it said, and the picture itself had it at rank 7, but then the article, it had rank 4, but it's still the fact of, Wonder Woman is basically stagnant anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But no, it wasn't number 1, and anything other than number 1 is basically a loser number. So,
Which it's
you know,
funny. The past 2 times, Absolute Wonder Woman. So here's the thing. What's actually interesting about this is Wonder Woman sells if she's not competing with Batman, because we noticed the only ever time she was anything but number 1 in terms of Absolute was when Absolute Batman launched, because when Absolute Batman launched in the month, Absolute Batman was number 1, Absolute Wonder Woman was number 2. This week, obviously, we won't know about the month until much later, but it is interesting how, again, Absolute Wonder Woman continues to sell well. Here's why I harp on this. The reason why Wonder Woman doesn't get the love she deserves because DC doesn't think the character is viable, honestly. I think that's really what it is. And they're like, okay, we have to publish a book, so let's just put anyone on it, like Tom King. Now, here's the thing. Here's why I always say gas up this book. Because this is showing DC it's not the character, it's the writer.
right. I mean, Wonder Woman as a character and the story that she has, it can sell. Like, even with DCEU, as controversial or, kind of misguided that was with 1984, she was still a viable character. Um, with absolute power, with absolute universe, I'm sorry. Okay, this is only issue 2, so we have to, of course, um give it that time of at least issue 6 to see if it's very much in a stable position to stay in the top 10 at least.
Well,
Um,
we also have to see how big of a drop was it from issue 1 to 2.
exactly. That as well. But we also have to but however, you can say the comparison between Absolute Wonder Woman and Tom King's Wonder Woman is vastly different. Absolute Wonder Woman being ranked 2, and I think Tom King's Wonder Woman, I believe the first issue was ranked 7, or it maybe, or it didn't even reach top 10. I don't know, but but it's basically stagnant within, top 30 or 40. So,
And that's supposed to be that's supposed to impress me.
It's impressive because of how Wonder Woman's book has been stagnant for so long, being ranked like hovering rank 100, or it
Mm-hmm.
has dropped that low.
Yeah, but
But
it's not even in the top 20 really. Get in the top 20 and then I'll be surprised. So by the way, but real quick, I got 3 covers again. So I got the main one by Sherman.
mhm,
Love it. Then I got this one by Raphael Albuquerque. It's this one right here.
mhm,
And then I got this one, which is by Stephanie Hans. It's this one right here.
yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that one is really cool because I like how they're doing the curly hair. That it reminds me a lot of Perez. So anyway, so Absolute Wonder Woman review. Now I will say, Britt and I had a little bit of a disagreement on this one
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
because here's the thing. My position is yes, Steve Trevor is in this issue. However, I think it's a little too early to assume that because Steve Trevor washes up on the island, that it's going to be the exact same story as the regular Wonder Woman.
Okay, now I can verbally say, okay, so here's my problem. First of all, Steve is still Steve, very much the bland character that he usually is. But my thing is how convenient. First of all, if this is to be organically feminist and to be a different universe and also just doing something different, the way that the very second, issue is introducing a man,
Would you rather
and
they
it's
not introduce Steve at all?
no, it's not that he can be in the book. It's just the fact of to be different, have someone else be introduced, have him be even the old man or be like an antagonist or be, um, have Etta instead come before Steve or
Or
Julian,
Julia?
yeah, Julian Vanessa or something like that. Something different. That is the point of this universe. But they didn't do that. Or Kelly didn't do that. She had Steve wash up on the shore. And how convenient is that he is the one. Okay, if they are in hell and many people have died, how convenient is for Steve to be the only one that has washed up on the island, but no one else has?
What if
It's
that's
those type of
what if
questions.
that's intentional?
It is intentional to a point
What
of,
if he is the antagonist, Britt? This is what I'm saying.
honestly, I mean,
Because again,
could be.
we're just on issue 2.
Yeah, I would say that it could be that twist, but as for now, say if that isn't the case though. She still had it it's way too convenient for him to wash up as, he originally does on an island though. I mean, that was way too simple. And then for Diana to automatically have this blushing and everything, it just felt too familiar. And it wasn't something that actually grabbed your attention again to care for Steve. If I was a reader who wanted to care for Steve, yeah, I don't, because you did the same exact thing that main verse did. And, you know, and again, him still in the military. It,
That's kind of his thing, though.
but we are supposed to be different. We are supposed to be the opposite of
Okay, how
the
would you
main
do it
verse.
then?
Honestly, I would have him old. He would have been, I would say he would have been a wise man or something like that. Like Diana would have met him. He wouldn't have been dead, I don't think. However, if you wanted him dead and, maybe she met him in hell, he would have been an older man and maybe he would have did something like he was some type of murderer. And he had to learn, that his ways were basically not of. Like, hmm, if you even introduce, if you want to have like the Perez version, how his mother, Diana Trevor, she crash landed on the mascara first, and that is how Diana, received her name. Have it to where Steve, I don't know, he goes through some childhood trauma. He grows up, and again, he does something that he obviously goes to hell for. And Diana, if Kelly wants to continue on with that, because she already had Diana helping the demon animal like things, then have her help these souls that have done wrong. And then they are able to kind of rest easy or something like that. So Steve is one of those type of souls that hasn't rested because he has done a lot of terrible things in his living life.
Speaking of terrible things, I did like when she's talking to the commander and I swear, I want to believe that line where she says, "But please understand that any effort to fashion me into yet another arm of your military-industrial complex will simply not be tolerated." I like to think that was Kelly Thompson saying, "I hate the current Wonder Woman run."
Well, the whole thing about, yeah, the military was definitely it, from what Twitter is taking it, definitely is a jab at.
Which means, wait, if Kelly were to take over main Wonder Woman, does that mean she would retcon all the BS out? Maybe. But
I
I
mean, I would
also
hope
did
so.
like where they go, "What do you feed your horse? What does a dead horse eat? Magic."
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't care for Steve. He's a nothing character to me because he doesn't bring anything to Diana.
Oh, me
My
too. It's just remember, the thing that I have issues with is raising the alarm bells because he's in the book.
Oh, I don't care if he's in the book. It's kind of like just do something different. He should have been introduced. If you're going to promote this as, okay, they literally say enter Steve Trevor, and they make it seem like this is going to be a new origin for him, just something grand. And all he does is the same exact thing that the main universe did was wash up on an island. It's just in hell. No, that's not different. And as storytellers or writers for you and I, we know that no, that's not going to cut it. Like there has to be, if she is to have a twist somewhere in there of Steve being an antagonist, then okay. But however, she did not set that up because when he was having a fit and acting distraught with Cersei, even Cersei, she is very much, it's kind of like the claws that Cersei had has very much been clipped down, you know,
But here's
because
the
she,
thing. What if he's an agent sent by the gods because Diana said Amazon a bunch of times?
I mean, Cersei would have had, you would have had a hint from Cersei, like she doesn't really trust Steve, but they were too trusting too easily, and you don't get that sort of hint. That's the thing. If you are to set something up like that, you give a hint, and there was no hint. It was just even with Steve, he's saying that um, I thought that I was a good man. I don't know what I did wrong. Okay, so we as readers, some people are just saying, well, being in the military just automatically makes you go to hell or
Which
something
is
like that.
wrong.
Well, exactly. So that's what I'm saying is that it has to be more that he has done, and that has not been um, conveyed there. And then their whole interaction is just basically very awkward, one note, and it's just you're tall, I'm tall, make blushy eyes or something like that. You know, again, it's very childish to me. Then you have, again, if he um came back to the living world, it's also implied that he was seen as a hero, now Jesus type thing. So that was a little bit too on the nose or something like that to call Steve Jesus. Um, and then again, you just did. She didn't really just give any type of hint of anything more. It was just he somehow went to hell. Diana somehow saved him to come back to life and be in the living world again. They, I guess, hadn't seen each other in a while. Diana still hasn't interacted with any other um, human or whatever except for Steve again, and that's it. But she also kind of a plot hole that needs to be filled, maybe in a later issue, that she knows the general um, as well. However, she has that Gateway City, no one knows her though. Like they call her a strange woman, but
Mhm.
the general knows her. You know, it's just some things that's kind of like it doesn't match yet. And
Could be knows of her.
of her, but it seemed like he knows her, like not of her yet. It just has this sort of like, if you want Diana to be this strange woman to the public, but she somehow met the military, again, like as you said, this is issue 2, so we have to wait and fill in the blanks. But if she doesn't fill in the blank, then I guess I'll continue on with my criticism.
Yeah, which is fine. Which is fine. Lord Zed says, can we please put an end to the Steve nonsense, please? I wish DC would stop pretending as if he's crucial Wonder Woman stories. He's not, but yeah, that's what Britt and I are saying. And Luffy, I get what you're saying, brother. But again, this is just issue 2, as we say many times before. Give it time. Because I got news for you. This is ammunition for DC putting more... See, here's the thing. The fact that this is selling more indicates to DC that they should put more effort into Wonder Woman. That's the thing. This selling well leads to them putting more emphasis on Wonder Woman. May not necessarily be the sole thing that gets King kicked off the book. I'm not saying that this alone will do it. However, this will at least show them they should put more emphasis into the character. And Ashton, I get that you've been burned by DC. Hell, Britt and I have been infernoed by DC way too many times. But I'm just saying, give it a shot, honestly. That's what all of us say there. So then we get Superman 20. Yeah, the Clois part was boring. And I love what Britt said in the notes. Yeah, she is pretty much a sidekick in this book.
Yeah, if you want Lois to have powers, I mean, first of all, it's coming too easy. And the way Williamson explains this is that, well, she was raised in the military, with her father, so she learned how to fight. It was like, okay, but fighting humans and kind of like basic martial arts or something like that is totally different from fighting big supernatural, like, magical monsters and stuff. That's two different things.
I will say, though, I did kind of, first off, it was nice seeing Ozempic Doomsday again, but I did really like that part where, like, Superman was, like, losing control briefly and beating the crap out of Doomsday. And obviously Dan Moore's art is, like, wow.
Yeah, his art is very good. His art is very good. It just seems like because he's on so many books and, it's not unique. And it seems like everything seems to be the same. But yeah, it's still good art.
Although the other thing that I took issue with, and Britt, you actually brought this up when in our group chat with Jib, when Batman chimes in and goes, Justice League heavies on standby, a bunch of those characters, I'm like, those are not heavies.
Exactly. But then, and someone else brought this up on a public tweet and was saying, like, why wasn't Wonder Woman there? Like,
yeah.
Diana, it has been very obvious that Diana is missing from the Superman books, and which isn't fair because, again, Superman is mentioned or, forced into her book. So why isn't that she's in his book?
Yeah, so here are the characters that are considered Justice League heavies. Power Girl. Okay, I could see that. Martian Manhunter. Also good. Star Sapphire. A Lantern, so I'll allow that. The Captain, otherwise known as Shazam. Okay. The Atom. No. And whoever the hell this demon bat creature is, no.
It's a wolf creature.
Batman I kind of count as a heavy because he's Batman. So you know what? Yeah. By the way, Atchison has a good point. Her costume sucks, and why is she wearing cleaner gloves? She is wearing those cleaner gloves. That's hilarious. I think what they tried to do, they were trying to do the Sasha Kaye suit. The problem is here's the funny part. This literally just looks like Diana lost her armor, so Clark just put on just gave her a Kryptonian suit.
Not even that. I mean, when Lois first appeared on issue 19 cover, they thought she was a future daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so first of all, she does look smaller. You know, she does look like a Supergirl more than a Superwoman, and they do look like twins.
And
Like,
by the way, you're just rehashing ideas that have tried and didn't work out in the past.
right. And then fighting Doomsday is kind of like, okay, this it's been done before. So giving Lois powers is nothing unique. You know, she's not doing anything actually, she's just not she's not doing anything special, and it's not showcasing them as a partnership or anything because again, she's following Superman. She's very much his sidekick. Um and with Williamson saying that, you know, well, having Clark say that Lois is the greatest woman ever and he learned not to underestimate her and everything like that. Again, you are sugarcoating it and playing it safe. If the thing is, when Diana dealt with Doomsday in the very first issue of Superman and Wonder Woman, she actually fought him to a point where her arms were broken, she was bloodied and everything. And gladly, yes, she healed because she has divine blood. But it's the fact that Charles Soule, he said that he's going to, you know, basically go full force and, you know, not he wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. And but that's the thing with the Superman books now and just everything within DC, they make everything seem so safe. And with Lois, even with the part of her trying to like punch Doomsday, she punched him a few times, then moved out the way, or conveniently Superman took over and everything like that. And it seemed like just his fight. And she did a little bit to help, but wasn't really helping. She was just in the way.
I will say the other thing is, are the Superman fans going to throw in another fit? Because after Doomsday pulls Parasite in half, Superman goes full like vengeful, wrathful dude and beats the crap out of Doomsday. Are the Superman fans that are upset that Superman's not smiling going to complain again? No, because they're a bunch of hypocrites. Gasp.
Of course. I mean, even with Lois having powers, we saw the tweets of them talking about, oh, they're gonna bang and make earthquakes or something like that. But or they're going to make another because legit saw a tweet that said because John like is a disappointment, they're going to make a replacement because Lois
What?
has powers. Yeah.
That
And
is
I'm like,
that. Can I say that's largely homophobic?
that and it's just very much eugenics.
That is extremely eugenics. My God.
To
I mean,
say,
you know what's kind of funny, Britt? These people seem a lot like they're more fans of General Zod.
right. I mean, for you to say, oh, now they can do this and that because Lois has powers. Okay, that's the same things that you raged about, you know, thinking
Oh, and
that,
by the way, he still won't be like pure Kryptonian if that's what you're trying to make, because Lois is still human.
even with her powers, I mean, it just seems like so convenient. And with giving her the powers again, it just seems like Williamson had nothing to do with Lois, especially with giving her the editor in chief role. And it just felt like she was a nothing character again. So make her basically Supergirl and Wonder Woman light.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what they did here. So Doomsday should have been a one and done villain. Yeah, exactly. I hate this overuse of Doomsday, and then they literally make Time Trapper the original Doomsday, and I'm like, okay, just stop,
But
guys.
he took Ozempic.
I'm sorry, Thin Doomsday just doesn't work. So speaking of things that don't work, Trinity. So Britt, and I did a couple of episodes on this. So We're gonna try and fix Elizabeth Marston Prince, aka Trinity. So, and okay, I'm gonna have this one caveat. I'm gonna take care of the opposite. Retconning her out of continuity doesn't count as much as we want to. Although
Okay.
I will say, Britt, I saw this tweet and I put in the chat that honestly would help, because my friend Robert, one of the things that he said that DC's probably going to do is at least retcon out the older Trinity, like make that like that's a possible future and never go to that point. And my problem is what that does is that even if you keep the baby, you still know that it's still associated with that Trinity. I said what they should do is retcon it so that's the reincarnated Hippolyta baby. Like it never grows up to be this Trinity. It essentially like in Wonder Woman Earth 1.
Yeah, I honestly, it's just hard to make Trinity connected with Diana because that wasn't her initial intention, in the first place.
Well, yeah,
She,
and also my issue is that when they introduce her, she's the leader of the Justice League,
yeah,
not John and or Damian.
yeah, and not whoever else is on the Justice League. Like, if,
Mm-hmm.
especially if Clark and Diana or, Bruce, well, at that time, I think Bruce should very much be retired because if this is 20 years in the future and Bruce is like 40 years old now, then he's 60. So this is basically, yeah, Kingdom Come age. So, yeah.
Also, where's Diana in this future?
Well, for this babysitter stuff to work, apparently she's on missions. But again, if this
So
is
she's an
20,
absent mother?
yeah, at first he says that she's the queen. So she's, I guess, would be the mascara, but then in another issue, he was, I think John or Damien implied that they were on missions. But it's kind of like, how can she be the leader of the Justice League and they have a Justice League on missions?
Well,
That,
it could be they're playing off of the Justice League Unlimited thing where like every hero's a Justice League. By the way, okay, I'm going to say this. I know he said we're not going to retcon her out, but here's a way I would retcon her out. Okay, so remember where Diana was captured by the Sovereign and was just released on that island with Cheetah? By the way, my theory is that Cheetah is going to betray Diana because why would the Sovereign just release Diana on an island with Cheetah?
it's just everything seems very convenient for the plot. It's more plot driven and the characters are placed there than the characters driving the plot.
True, but my retcon is that Diana that got released, that's not Diana, that's Cersei.
That would be funny.
And now here's what I would do. This is how I would retcon. If I were in charge of Wonder Woman after Tom King came on, this is how I would retcon it. I would make it where where Diana has still been being held by Sovereign the entire time. The Wonder Woman that we saw in like Absolute Power that recruited Cheetah and all that stuff, that was Cersei the entire time.
Well, that would be a twist. If Tom King wants a lot of red herrings, then yeah,
Because
that
guess
would be
what?
one of them.
That would explain why she's making out with Steve in the middle of a battle.
Well, yeah, that would definitely,
Oh wait, it
yeah.
would also explain why she got like shot and was like weaker, because it could be she's trying to maintain the facade of Diana so she can't protect herself. Honestly, Britt, I'm a freaking genius. This would be immediately what I would do. And Diana, and then she makes Trinity because she wants to create a legacy because she knows this isn't going to last. So Diana shows up. You can make it where no, Trinity still exists, but Diana decides to still raise her. Like she still adopts her. And to your point, Britt, this becomes like a adoption story. And she's like, no, I don't care who your mother is. You still have potential.
Kind of like, well, she will be as far as your well, first you're trying to psych us all out with the Cersei theory because how terrible Tom King,
Well, here's the
had
thing,
Diana.
Britt. Here's my point though. Here's why I say Cersei. A, when he was on my friend Robert's channel, he was talking about Tom King said that there are two characters that still have a part to play that we haven't seen yet. That's one of them is Emily, and I'm like, yeah, no sugar honey iced tea, bro. But the second one, here's my theory. If you notice how remember that issue where Tom King showed the Sovereign like gathering all of Wonder Woman's villains, and it was like Grail, it was like
Giganta.
Giganta, it was Silver Swan. Okay, you notice how we saw Cersei there, but Cersei doesn't do anything.
Right.
That's partly why I'm like, what if? Okay, here's the other theory on what they could do. I think, and this is my theory, I don't think Trinity was ever supposed to extend past this run. I think King had the idea for a closed story, and Trinity was going to exist for the purpose of this story. That's it. And then what he could do is wrap it up, and then Trinity is never is like retconned out or something like that. In other words, Trinity was never supposed to be a big part of the DC universe. She was just supposed to exist for the purpose of the story. Why
That's
do it
honestly
then? But still, it's like that's another way that he could at least salvage this is by closing the loop, in other words.
that's honestly what it feels like because again, her her purpose is not for Diana. It's for the Super Sons to babysit. So, I mean, if that's the story that you want to tell, Diana shouldn't have been dragged into this, but it feels very much like a side story. Like nothing feels connected within the Wonder Woman book because America or the government versus the Amazon feel like a total different storyline than having Diana now as this injustice on the verge of being injustice Diana with a baby because of Steve dying, and the Sovereign. It just feels so disconnected. It doesn't feel like a story that's very genuine to Diana. And then you have the backups or this side or the side story of older Trinity with the Super Sons, and it still just doesn't feel very connected because Diana has never, even with Tom King trying to introduce a daughter, she's never had that. He never gave her that time to, uh, I guess, give a hint that she wanted to become a mother.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point here. It's like, because here's what they could do if they make it a closed loop. Then they don't have to say we wasted all the marketing for this character. No, we did it. It served its purpose. They can always, I'm sure privately I'd hope, because here's my theory on what actually happened. Tom King pitched the story, or DC pitched the story. We don't know which one. And it was going to be a closed story. And then they had the option of, obviously, if Trinity exploded like they thought she was going to be, then you know what? They would have carried on the character. But I think that they're like, okay, so we planned for this to be a closed story. Let's just make this let's just keep it as a closed story. Because the sad part is that DC thought that putting Tom King on the book would actually lead to the Wonder Woman sales exploding, and it didn't. By the way, we have
Right.
breaking
So,
news. Apparently, according to Jason Aaron, so the apparently a weakness that Absolute Superman has is that every night he has to recharge his solar cells, and that's why in like Absolute Superman, when you see him, he's like recharging on the roof. That's actually really cool. I like that.
oh, where did he say that?
It's in a Screen Rant article from 3 hours ago.
Oh, okay. Um, okay. So with Wonder Woman, they did go to Tom King to write the Wonder Woman book because they felt like his Supergirl miniseries, well, this was, I guess, when James Gunn uh announced it was going to be adapted as a movie. I
Hmm.
think this is when they went to Tom King and felt like, oh, can you do the same thing for Wonder Woman that you did for Supergirl? Which again, that book was already 2 years old and it was basically in the dollar bin. So Tom King didn't really do anything. It just became kind of like popular, and I use it very loosely because of the movie adaptation that is receiving. But the story itself was Tom King, and the initial story was just Trinity for the Super Sons, because
Hmm.
Tom, he said that he had a list of things that wouldn't be in Wonder Woman's book, which Wonder Girls were banned until the fans complained and asked them to have them in there. And the reason why he has them in there is, again, to benefit Trinity, that Diana can just sit, you know, whatever, and be depressed and care for this random Chucky baby. Um, then you have he said the gods. He doesn't want the gods involved at all. And it's
Well,
kind of like,
that's
okay,
then why'd
yeah,
you write Wonder Woman?
why are you writing Wonder Woman? Exactly. Obviously, the Amazons are either in prison, have been killed, or they're acting very, mean and stereotypical as, you know,
Like with the cancer patient. See,
exactly.
the other thing is like I have a theory that in Wonder Woman like 15 with the Wonder Girls like bombing stuff and like robbing banks, I'm convinced that though that when Tom King originally had the story, it was supposed to not be the Wonder Girls and it like some other Amazons, but when he had to use the Amazons, I mean, the Wonder Girls, and according my friend Robert doesn't think it's going. It doesn't think it was the fans that made Tom King use the Wonder Girls. He thinks it was actually DC editorial that says no, you have to use the Wonder Girls.
Well, I mean, either way, it's still the fact that he wasn't going to
Include them. It is
include
stupid.
them.
By the way, Lord Zed asked a question. Do we know how well Tom King's Wonder Woman is doing in sales? Do we have the numbers? I know it's trending
Mm,
downward like severely.
right. It's very much stagnant. We don't have the numbers anymore because they have the distribution. They've switched from Comic-Con to Lunar. So no, we don't have the specific numbers. It's just going by ranking. And with the rankings, the last time, I would say if a book is in the top 10, of course that's going to be, 100K and above. Sometimes it can be, I would say, around 80K,
Mm-hmm.
or, no, I would say 75K and above is top 10, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then downward to 75 to 60 or 50, 55 is rank 20 and downward. And then you have top. Okay, so I would say that within rank 50, the book will probably be selling the range of hmm, maybe a high 40K. But honestly, because of, comics going down, across the board, that might have changed to
Mm-hmm.
where the a book that is actually selling, I would say, a low 30 is now in rank 50. Is that's just how bad the comic industry is right now. But honestly, with what we see is that the books sales are very much stagnant, though. Just that's how it is. Um yeah, so with this book, and especially with the fan reception of how Tom King has done these last two issues, that maybe his ego is a little bit hurt, but at the same time, it's not hurt enough to where he
Well,
continues
here's the
on.
thing, Lord Zed. Here's a good indicator of the sales, by the way. Wonder Woman 14, the self-declared most important issue of the run, the first appearance of Wonder Woman's daughter,
Oh,
didn't get
right.
a
It didn't
second
get a second
printing.
printing. Right. It didn't. No special.
You would think that the speculators would gas that up because it's a first appearance of supposedly a very important character. Nope.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. It did not get a second printing. No special covers. Nothing like that. It just was. It just happened, and then the fan backlash and everything like
Yeah.
that. Um.
It sounded like I think honestly that what they're probably doing is because King said that like within the next couple of issues he's going to wrap up the sovereign perspective of the story, and then he's going to go, and then the next phase of the story is going to be from Diana's perspective. So maybe we'll actually get some Diana thoughts, so she won't be as like emotionally like stunted. But the thing that I'm thinking of is that he has an opportunity here. I don't think he's going to take this opportunity, but the opportunity still exists where he could use that to undo a bunch of the things that gave him backlash, like Wonder Woman punching her mom, the whole eating rats thing. He could use this to get rid of a lot, to like retcon out, because Diana can say, that's not what happened. You're the unreliable narrator. And I'm like, here's the thing. I get where he was coming from with the whole unreliable narrator thing, but the problem with King is that he thinks he's setting that up, but he's not. He's not being obvious enough. Some things you have to be very obvious if you're going to put all this BS on a character's origin.
Especially when this has been set up since Wonder Woman 800. Like, no, you have had Sovereign be the narrator of this story since the first introduction. You cannot say that, oh, it's always been this way. No, it hasn't. And I really can't stand when writers they try to, you know, you know, um, screw with the reader's intelligence, but at the same time, the reader sometimes they are acting like sheep. But as again, writers, as we know and how storytelling is supposed to be, this is not a and also to say that this whole entire run is full of red herrings. No, it's just a bunch of I changed my mind.
I
Or
think that's him going back and forth, because actually I'm going to read a comment that someone put on with my Under Two Capes episode I did with Robert. So I'm going to do this. By the way, shout out to Nemo Strange's Strange Song in the Dirt 8448. So what he says is, it felt like Tom King changed his mind in the middle of the run and got quickly bored of his old one. Wonder Woman in this run felt like the writer intentionally forced changes and should not have been there. The stuff you talked about was what most people thought was going to happen. Then King refused for some strange reason, and then we got this mess.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay, so since you are, I need to go back to the whole Cersei thing. And honestly, to psych ourselves out, that would make sense for Cersei to be like this version of Trinity, like mother or whatever, because that is a callback to Lita Milton,
Mm-hmm.
who is Cersei's daughter that was in Post Crisis. So that would make sense. Um, as far as having Emily as the runaway pregnant Amazon, that honestly speaks to Wonder Woman and would have been far more compelling than making Steve like the center of Wonder Woman's story and the purpose of her having a kid out of nowhere and just her whole entire motivation for everything, wanting Steve to be that important. And to say that he is the start, the heart of her story, or the reason why
Or like they're in the middle of their relationship. I'm like, wait a minute here.
Right.
A, he's dead, and B, they weren't together for 5 years.
Which is hilarious because they really don't have a solid relationship at all. Like, he is the default love interest, but it's so boring and so like it doesn't have any depth to it. It's just there.
Mm-hmm.
So, how I would fix Trinity, um, it would be a full-on tearjerker, very bittersweet of the bond between a mentor and her student, which is Diana as the student of Emily. Because if you're going to introduce this character as someone who fought Diana, who had like this, she was a bit unruly, she obviously very violent as an Amazon, she, in their fight, if you go take if you're flashing back to them battling against each other and then Emily having like this knowing how Diana is strong, how you know and wanting to see Diana's potential, that is how a mentor would act. So to emphasize on that and bringing Wonder Woman's story back to how even Perez did and more female oriented, um, it will be all the same of how King set it up, where Emily is the catalyst of the murders at the bar and she's running away. It is known that she is pregnant, everything like that. So it is a story of adoption, sacrifice, healing, and honoring the Amazons. Emily, like I said, Emily was Diana's mentor in the past. She left the mascara on her own because she was, in a sense, even though she was helping Diana, she was still there's a sense of jealousy because some of the Amazons feel like Diana does have it easy as the princess, and she's also the one that is far more, well, she is destined to be the champion. So a lot of the Amazons feel like they should leave to basically prove themselves, and Emily was one of them. So she's been in Manswell for a long time. She has witnessed a lot of things that has gone on, and she wants to go back home, but she can't. Uh, so out of her frustration and what she, as a callback also to how um, Hippolyta was abused by Hercules, Emily ends up meeting Sovereign, and she's abused by him, but with the lasso of lies. So that is how you basically put in some very, because Tom King wants to be a controversial writer, you put in the controversial things, especially with Wonder Woman, and have the lasso of lies not just something that is giving you an illusion of her being a housewife, make it a little bit more compelling.
By the way, Atchison brings up a good point. Okay, so first off, Luffy says, I'd either retcon Trinity, kill her off, or disconnect her from Diana and turn into a villain, possibly by making her a product of Cersei. My point. And
Right.
Atchison says, this whole run needs to be retconned. And then he goes on, if DC can retcon her new 52 run, they can retcon this one. That is true.
That's true. Yeah.
This is the one time I'm saying repeat rebirth.
Yeah.
This is extenuating circumstances. Or better yet, flashpoint this.
Yeah. I really do think they will do that because it was Bleeding Cool had, they said that Superman and Batman are getting number ones again.
Yeah, it's a rumor. Now, here's the thing. That at least gets I think that will at least be the most likely time that they push King off the book. I've long said, I think summer 2025 is when his run ends, is when he will leave the book. He's not getting, first off, he's not getting 100 issues. Everyone I've talked to about that says, no, he's not getting 100 issues. There's no way he gets 100 issues. no Wonder Woman writer gets 100 issues.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think because when you and here's the thing though, let's say they do restart that with a new number one. Let's say the rumor's true. If that's true, and they restart with number one. Now, Britt, correct me if I'm wrong. When they restart a number from number one, isn't that like they basically like treat it as like a soft reboot?
Yes, it is a soft reboot.
So what I think that they'll do, I think they'll keep like I don't think they'll keep a lot from this run. First off, Sovereign's not going to show up outside of this run. Here's what I think they will do, though. I think they will Alfred Steve. In other words, I think they will keep him dead for a few years at least.
I would hope so. I think that Tom King wants to bring him back and have like this whole he liked a couple of comments, basically patting him on the back, but it was basically in reference to how, Superman was during Rebirth with the nuclear family and that's basically what he wants to do with Wonder Woman.
Okay, so here's the thing though, Britt. I wouldn't buy necessarily every time a creator likes a comment.
With King and, how he was with like Batcat and yeah, with him liking a comment is definitely an indication that he's getting some type of idea or that he wants to do so because he did the same thing with
but here's the thing.
Batcat.
He could say he wants to do whatever he wants. If editorial says no, then that's it. And I think editorial will say no because I think DC is finally starting to get because they tried to push Steve Trevor in this run. It didn't work. In fact, the fan base hates him even more now, I would argue. So really, I would say just leave him dead. Because if you leave him dead, guess what you could do? Just give the fans a reboot of Steve. The other thing that I think they could do, because I think that what they'll do is, let's say King leaves the book next year and they restart with the number one. I think what they'll do, they won't reference the baby for like a couple of months, give the fan base a break from her. Plus, they can decide: do we want to retcon her out? Do we want to keep her? Because that way it gives them time. Because if they decide, okay, you know what, we can salvage this character, it gives them time to at least come up with a plan. How do we salvage this character? If they decide to retcon her out, they can also find a plan. How do we retcon her out? The other thing that's what we have to consider is, okay, DC is legally obligated to have a Wonder Woman book in publication. They need to keep the rights to the character because they don't own all the rights to Wonder Woman. What they can do, however, is allow Wonder Woman books to take a, let's say, 2-month break. They can do that, and that's what I think they should do, because with the 2 months, that gives them an opportunity to find a writer. I think, honestly, when we get to 2025, I do think DC is going to start hearing additional pitches for Wonder Woman, and then we'll get an indicator. The problem is there's very few writers at DC now that I trust with Wonder Woman.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, you can have Conrad on a run by himself. Give him another chance to do something. Because
or Kelly Thompson.
Well, yeah. Well, we are still 2 issues in, so let's see how she, does Absolute Wonder Woman. At least
I will
2
say
issues.
she has written female characters really well, as in the case of Birds of Prey.
Yeah, I would give her that. Yeah,
and the fact that she said that it's going to be organically feminist, and so far it's like, see, here's the thing. Ordinarily, that would be a red flag, at least for me, because I'm like, oh god, are you going to do a bunch of man bashing? Nope. So far, she hasn't done that. So far, it's been the organically, she's kick-ass. That's it.
Right.
Or Dan Abnett. Oh, Rebirth Aquaman, Britt. Aquaman was one of the other good Rebirth books.
Yeah. Everything besides Superman and Wonder Woman were better in Rebirth.
Even the
Or
first, even the first few issues of Tom King's Batman was actually pretty decent.
yeah, and then he just fell. Honestly,
Now,
it's
I
it's
will say,
something
Britt,
about
a lot of his Batman run was editorially mandated, like the killing off of Alfred. So I'm not going to blame him for a lot of what happened on his run that people critique him for, because that wasn't necessarily all him.
right. I well, honestly, the main thing was Alfred's killing, but everything else was him, and it's the fact that he was so concerned to really establish Batcat. That's the thing. Tom King and DC thinks that this is something to praise because they praised it in an interview that they had with him. Is he wants to center everything about like the traditional romances, and it's like no, stop it, because the romance has to be something that's a that's second, you know, and you have to build up on the character and whatever the conflict, the story that you're trying to tell. It's not just a romance story. And the fact that um readers are so hypocritical and have a double standard, because when Superman and Wonder Woman had their book, Charles Soule, he had to continuously say, no, this isn't just a romance book. It isn't just them kissing or something like that. They're actually, fighting the action and dealing with their own um, internal issues, but also natural conflicts that they will have together. You know, but with Batcat, or again traditional relationships, even what Williamson is doing with Superman and Lois having powers, they want it to be like this um, happy-go-lucky, we're in costumes and maybe you get a punch here and there, but it's not really, you don't really feel that depth of equality that Superman and Wonder Woman had in the Power Couple book. You don't have that inner conflict of both being challenged as individuals and a couple. And then with trying to force that this is the couple and they should be, instead of just having it organic and just letting the story flow on its own, you have where Tom King is using characters like Talia, or the controversy of plagiarizing Immortal Beloved with Diana, or even
Getting his editor fired.
having his editor fired, having even an artist fired, and he had Jay Lee, or
Yeah.
what else did he do? He had Andrea Beaumont, you know, just to establish Batcat. When again, this is why I don't want Steve and Lois to kick the bucket, because you are showing that you are threatened by these other ships, and it shouldn't be about that. Your ship should be just about your ship, and show the positiveness just within that relationship, not bash other characters to prop either the individual characters or the relationship itself. I really don't like that. Yes, they have attributes that we don't like, with Lois being who she is as the nosy reporter, the female dog. You know, her attitude is just very bad and everything like that, and selfish. Yeah, you can use that within storytelling, and that's what we do with Steve. He's nothing, basically, very boring, but what we use is that, yeah, he can be a jealous ex that wanted the power, that wanted Wonder Woman on his arm, because he's so being this colonel and feeling like he has this power. And it was another thing that Jid actually said in our message, when he said that Steve is kind of like a mirror to Hercules. in that sense of
Oh
that
my gosh, she's right.
within
I
being in the
never put that together.
yeah, within being in the military and having Diana like this, it, it's not that he abuses Diana, but it's
He
just the fact
emotionally
of,
does.
well, yeah, the emotional abuse and that sort of possession that he
By the
sort
way,
of,
can I say I find it hilarious how Brit's like, well, he doesn't exactly do that. And I'm like, yeah, he does.
I'm trying to give him something. But
Don't.
that okay, I won't. Well, I'm not because the more I explain this, the more it's like, yeah, keep him, you know, keep him Kenny. Um, and the fact that he is possessive and, that he tries to emotionally guilt trip Diana, things like that, that is a mirror of Hercules and with that type of power that he feels that Diana very innocent, she doesn't know anything within man's world, so he feels like he could take advantage of that and basically mold her into what he thinks she should know within man's world. And that was what happened in New 52. While you have Clark, who's the anti of Hercules, that he has this, he's a powerful man. He can rival Hercules and rival Zeus, but he is so respectful, so honorable. And another thing with Steve is that the way some writers or some fans think that Steve is a good person or he's a good man, that now the Amazons are wrong for how they think of men, in America or just men in men's world. But no, it's not that.
Steve is not the one to convince the Amazons of that. If anything, is to
Right,
do with the S on his chest.
right, because Clark's whole thing is that the Amazon are very much right. You know,
Mhm.
there are men who are bad. They still are. However, he is showing that still a man there can be a man with power who can be respectful, who can honor them, who can support them, who can be on their side. That is no right or wrong to it. It's just that someone that can be, just the opposite of what they thought that, those that a man of power is, you know, but they aren't wrong. So with trying to make it that Steve is right, that he's so perfect, and that you basically making it seem like the Amazon should worship him or something like that. And no, that's the wrong message that's being told with Wonder Woman and trying to make again Steve the center of her story. It's not like that, and that's the reason why Perez made him an old man. And he honestly, if he doesn't kick the bucket, just make him an old man and make him that brother figure. And to make him a brother figure, it helped Diana because if you want him to even if you want her to even have the Zeus origin and have like that Zeus being a deadbeat and like not very much a father figure for her, but she has Steve as a father figure, that's a mirror too. That is a better way of putting it.
Most likely, by the way, even if he brings back Steve, I could see DC having him make the dialogue where Diana goes, "You were killed because you're close to me. We can't be together."
I mean, the thing is, if King is still on the book and he brings back Steve, it will be like he is a the grand hero. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he plagiarized Death of Superman.
If he has four Steves show up, one's a teenager, one's a. By the way, my friend Robert had a great idea. See, here's what this run was messing. The Sovereign should have had his own champion. And I brought up, what if that was a mind controlled Steve?
That would be better than
And I
whatever.
told him he kind of set that up in issue 2 when she was facing up the US military.
Exactly. Okay, he wanted it to be where they have conflict and how he's on this side. And that's the thing. Steve chose to be on that side.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that they're so in love when was basically gaslighting Diana, being condescending? Even Diana in issue 3 was being condescending towards Steve, and yet now we are supposed to believe that they're so in love. Yeah, I don't buy all of that. It was just Tom King. He wanted to make Steve important. He wanted to basically have Diana, um, like how they have Clark with Lois, shackled to them, linked to them in such a way where they act like they can't function without them. And, that's how you show their importance. So now Diana is shackled with her emotional state of not be her motivations of doing things or lack thereof, and then she has this Chucky baby, that she did not want at all.
Chucky baby, I love how you call it that. By the way, Atchison says they'll bring back Steve with a mullet.
Yeah, definitely.
He'll be wearing a black U.S. Army fatigues because they'll forget again that he was in the Marines in this run. So they'll change his military branch yet again and put him in black camo. Yeah, so they'll say, "Oh, he had his own black suit." Oh my gosh, Britt, that is so good. That is so true, though. I could see them doing the whole death of Superman again.
Yeah, but this time have it Steve. And then Diana, she's probably going to, now she's going to act like, for Tom King to have that the lasso of lies of Diana not wanting to play like the housewife role, he's definitely having her play the housewife role, or at least the stay-at-home mom type role for
Yeah,
Steve.
but again, that's why I'm like, yes. Let me put it this way: King can want to do whatever he wants, but I feel like editorial is going to tell him if you bring back Steve, they can't be together because it's not working anymore.
Right. It's awful.
That's what people have to understand about DC. It doesn't matter and I ran into this when I told people that Wonder Woman's not bi, because they'll say so and so writer said so, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care as long as editorial doesn't acknowledge it. I got news for you. She's not. Any writer can say whatever they want, but if editorial doesn't acknowledge it, or in the case of Wonder Woman's bisexuality, directly says no, it doesn't matter what the writer says. What editorial says goes.
Right. And that's true.
That's just the way it works.
Right. I mean, for us to even have, I would say Wonder Woman 800 and all the little gem teases or whatever of Superman and Wonder Woman, it, even if, Williamson or other writers tried, Superman writers, on that side, try to ignore Clark and Diana's relationship, um, for obvious reasons of, like I said, the threat of the status quo, there is still something that's going to overshadow it. And it's just a matter of time when another writer or something, not Tom King, because he definitely does not know how to write Clark and Diana's friendship.
Mm-mm.
You know, but
Remember his
something
deep
else
dive?
that was very much the toenail of the pinky toe in
The pinky toe.
it's
Brett, I
not
love the way you say stuff.
in a water bottle cap of water.
Water bottle cap.
That was not a deep dive of nothing. That was nothing. But yeah, it probably will be another writer that tries to um at least dip a big toe in teasing Superman and Wonder Woman at some point.
At some point, but again, then you run into the editorial issue, because aren't the editors the ones that like to keep Clark and Diana apart, at least on the Superman side?
Well, it depends on it's a back and forth thing with the writers and the editors. It's like some writers, you know, the thing is the Wonder Woman books and the Superman books have the same editors. So it's kind of like For now, it feels like more on the writer side than the editorial side.
Okay, so it could be that. But anyway, so I think that we are going to wrap this up because we hit 3 hours, Britt. All right.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. So Britt, do you have any stories you want to tease us with?
Okay, so of course we have the Shelterverse that's building. I'm so glad that we have, holiday breaks because I have been able to really just do a little bit here and there more than I have been, and able to actually update a little bit more too. So I have two more stories to upload, which I will probably um if not tomorrow, sometime within the week. And then still going on with chapter three, other one shots. The story that I love that we are uh building
Hmm?
to, and I just can't wait to kind of give a glimpse of the stories that we have, even it's like 50 million of them. Um, and I am working on a few one shots. Of course, it's tonight one shots that is a little bit or a lot of on the romantic side and mature level. But then to balance it out, I do have a right now it's a two-parter, and I think it will just be a two-parter. It's at first it started off as a one shot, but now it has grown bigger as always. It was an idea that or a conversation that me and Jid had about basically Diana's vulnerability and the way she sort of tried to bottle things in, and also like her she has like anxiety, and that was also introduced in the Perez run when she first came to Man's World, and how overwhelmed she felt, especially with big crowds and people trying to take her picture, and just that rush of people in her face, making her feel like that celebrity. So with that idea, it of course it comes with also I just remembered in New 52 they also did a little bit of this of how she was perceived as just this goddess, and she wasn't able to just relax and be herself. So within this story, it is exploring that her level of anxiety and how she wants to bottle that in, but then she talks to Clark and he shares that he has anxiety too, especially the fact of um his power to hear everything is like it becomes overwhelming for him. So they bond over that, and it really shows not so much as just their romance and how they connect with that, but also their friendship too. So that is something that I'm working on as well. And just like I said, a little bit more one shots for tonight and Shelterverse.
Heck yeah. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane and Steve Trevor is Steve Never. That's a new one.
That is clever.
That was my friend Robert. I can't take full credit for that, but hey, if DC is gonna give us this type of names, we're gonna take advantage of that. So, she belongs with General Zod, and he belongs with. I'll come up with that one. Zois and Max are bad for life. I'll see you later, everyone. Bye bye.